Hey, it's Lori. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
There you go.
Yes, you're looking like you're having a good time down yonder.
Yeah, running around doing stuff. I just wish it was sort of like, not running back and forth, but.
Yeah, so what's it where you're in Wilmington, right?
I'm in Wilmington, North
Yeah.
Carolina. Yeah.
Right. And you're performing.
Performing, just did a bunch of stuff in Myrtle Beach, and then we worked out an arrangement to have a convention we have one convention in Myrtle Beach in January, and then we have another one sometime in August up in Baltimore at the Lord Baltimore Hotel.
Oh, nice. Well, good old Baltimore. So
running back and forth doing stuff at the hotel in Baltimore because we basically let us run a magic theater out of there. So when we want to do shows, we can use the theater up there, like in the hotel.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. Well, you go see Mr. Poe's grave up there.
I did.
Yeah.
My friend does a ghost tour.
Yeah.
Through the whole Westminster thing, and we were there for 4 days when they had the International Egg Rail and Poe Festival.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we had to do an early morning TV broadcast from the Poe Cottage.
Wow. When was that?
Was the beginning of October.
Oh, this month, this time.
Yep.
Is that broadcast online somewhere?
It might be. It was sort of like, it was one of those, what they did was they shot a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And they used it for lead-ins and things like that for the news. So I don't know if
okay.
stuff is going to show up
Right.
here because it's sort of like, they're like, because he was like, oh, well, bring some stuff to do. And then I get there and he goes, so what do you have that's like 15 seconds long?
Oh my God, 15 seconds.
Not much. He goes, well, I can give you maybe 17. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, it must have been a local news thing. I mean, I know it's a season, you know what I mean? It was a season.
That was like for the International Egg Rail and Poe Festival. So
wow.
Like, you know what? It hypes Baltimore. It hypes the Poe House.
Yeah.
And it's an international thing. So let's put it on the news, so.
Right.
Some guy was like my friend grew up in Baltimore, and he goes, oh, I think his name was Marty something, was like the news guy. And he goes, oh, he's sort of a local celebrity. He's been, a news guy from forever. And I go, oh, okay. I'm like, being not growing up anywhere near Baltimore.
Right.
Doesn't ring any bells for me.
I probably would know him if I saw him. I mean, I didn't live in Baltimore. I lived in Maryland and worked in D.C., but, he might be.
He said there was a while ago, many a year ago.
Yeah.
The guy had been involved with trying to pick up a hooker or something, some kind of a thing,
yeah.
back in the day of, his misdeeds. So he goes, oh yeah, the story's going around. I go, oh, so they haven't dropped it in all those years? He goes, no, it's Baltimore. I go,
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I kind of understand that, but so let me see. I'm sort of half. I mean, I had to teach out at the prison this morning, so I'm a little bit fried. I spend 3 solid hours out there, and and then my brain is down to one. It's like battery cables running off of me. So I know we haven't talked in quite a while, and I haven't been doing much. I've just been teaching. But I've got some students, kind of proteges who are in the media production again. And I mean, like I used to do. And we've been focusing on paranormal themes. One of my students just put out a little documentary about a haunted location up here in Maine. And so I don't know, we are trying to put our talents or our energies together for another publication. We got one issue out in October called Paranormal World Magazine.
okay.
We're looking at everything from ghost hunting to cryptids, Bigfoot stuff. And so, yeah, and I said, well, my gosh, I haven't talked to you in ages. And I remember I keep telling people how fascinating you are because you are a fascinating person. And you're a practicing vampire, I believe. You're still doing that?
still trying to, keep things going as much as possible, and like sort of like when people want to hear about it, I'll talk about it, So it's sort of like we did a vampire ball down here in, when the hell was it? It was not that long ago. It was sort of like everything runs into like last 2 months of like one thing is like run right into another. So it's like in the midst of this last month or so, we did a first time ever like sort of photo shoot / vampire ball in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Wow.
So,
Well, what's it like down there? Because I know up here. I mean, I know you're in the New York scene for quite a while, and then you were up here, and of course you had Salem. What's the difference of down south there?
well, the problem is like I didn't grow up down here, and I have yet to really, other than my magician friends, I don't really know of a place to go that's comfortable for me to socialize. So there's not really an opportunity to do any kind of like real networking, build a club other than, or some kind of, any kind of vampire outing thing other than the people that I know that are up in Cary, North Carolina.
Okay.
So they're the reason that she like sort of is a photographer and she's the one that puts on the bikini bash down here in Wrightsboro Beach. That's usually for charities, and so she has contact with all these like models and stuff. So what she did was sort of do a photo shoot / like vampire ball.
Well, how did that go?
It went really well. I mean, the place was packed. Like, couldn't have fit like another person in there if you wanted.
Wow.
But that's her thing. Is like she's good at like she has been down here for a while, and she knows all these girls and she knows all these photographers, and she's been around. So it's like sort of, she has the contact. So I'm like, if you want to do something, you put it together, and I will show up.
Okay.
So I'm like, I don't want to be the. It's the same way with the magic thing. I never really wanted to get involved in the talking to the hotel or doing the registration / banking stuff, like keeping track of like whether we have enough money. It's like I will set up the shows at the convention. I will contact the performers. I will schedule who should go into what show as far as to keep the flow going. But I don't really want to deal with ticket sales and money.
Right. Well, I mean, that's, kind of the way it should work. I don't know. Talent shouldn't have to worry about that. That's why you have agents, Well,
I think they sort of think that, like, we're supposed to be able to do everything. Like, they don't understand. Like, many a year ago when I was engaged, like, this is back in, like, 1987. Like, there was a sort of famous guy that made magic silks and everything, and my fiance at the time was bitching and moaning about, like, why I wasn't having, because she worked at a bank, so she didn't quite get the concept of magicians don't work 7 days a week.
Right.
So we get to, and he's like, look, you realize that, like, even people in Las Vegas don't work constantly, like, sometimes they work 6 months off, 6 months on, and things like that, and they do stuff. Because you have to realize he's making his own routines,
right?
Building stuff. He's worrying about his own costuming. He's worrying about his own sound. He's putting all the stuff together. Like, he cannot see. He's like, if you want to be his manager, you sort of better take that up yourself. Because he goes, Vlad doesn't have any like extra energy to deal with that because he's got too many things going on his own.
Well, sure, but that's what I mean. I mean, any kind of talent. I mean, there are some performers who do kind of try to do it all, but it's almost impossible. It's so difficult, and you run out of energy,
And a lot of those guys, like, don't create their own material.
That's true, too.
All the stuff, and they just sort of, like, they're like, you know what, somebody else, like David Copperfield doesn't really, he finds other magicians that come up with great ideas for him, and he figures out a way to do them.
Yeah.
But when you're doing all the other stuff, like, you don't really sort of have, extra brain cells left over to do the cold calling and all the other crap. So
yeah, but that's like I say, it's true in any of the arts. I mean, I don't care if you're a photographer or writer, it's really almost impossible to do that and do it well. Some people can, but
Yep.
it's very few and far between. So anyway, I want to kind of, so I gotta recap. You know, like I say, it's been so long since we've talked, and
Yeah, no problem.
I want to do well, I want to do a written piece, you know, for the zine, and I'm recording us talking, and I'll probably edit, you know, do a nice little edited audio of this. You know, people are very fascinated with the topic. So can you just again explain what does it mean to be a vampire?
To different people, it means different things.
Right.
We have to break it down into the categories. There are people that are what we would call lifestylers, which those are the people that just sort of like the trappings of the vampire community, dressing up and sort of blending in. And then you get people that are sort of crossed over into the BDSM kink community or like S&M community that are blood fetishists, which really aren't vampires, but it's like they get grouped in there anyway for mostly crime statistics. And them, it's a sexual turn on blood and sort of like the cutting and all the other things. And then you have sanguine vampires, which are the ones that actually through committed relationship or for their own, you know, personal reasons feel that they need to ingest blood or share blood. And then you have what's called some people call them psychic or energy, or in the sanguine community they call them pranic vampires, which are the ones that manipulate energy. So those are sort of the basic categories of what we would say, you know, the vampire realm is.
Yeah, right. And do you have any idea of numbers as who, you know, what is the population of?
Nobody's actually been able to get everybody to get on the same page and fill out any kind of
Form.
Yeah, they're sort of slackers. So you get very crazy statistics, like, you know, and it's I mean, but when you see turnout to events that are usually invitation only, I mean, a small turnout could be 100. You know, sometimes it's 200-300. You know, things in New Orleans. I've yet to be there, but, you know, from the pictures and things, those are a couple 100, 300, and more people that don't go to the things for whatever. Some of them have personal, like, you know, reasons that they debate, like whether things should be exposed to the public or they don't like certain people, so they just don't turn out for these events. But you always get drama.
Right, of course, I guess, like anything, right?
It's like there's always drama.
Like, what are you doing here, huh?
Yeah. So it's like most of the things, you know, they're sparse. I mean, out of one of the things when we tried to do the get-togethers in Salem, unfortunately, you'd think Salem with all of its like around in the paranormal and things like that, and you know, witches and everything else, it was hard to get 15 people together.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I do remember you were talking about the difference with for example, New England vampire community compared to New York, you know, New York City. And that New England, they were far more, less likely to.
Just don't want to really, they didn't, I tried to do the talk amongst most of the people, and they didn't see a need to socialize with other vampires.
Right.
They were just like, I do my own thing, and I don't want somebody telling me. Because in New York, there was a structured sort of guidelines. They weren't laws. They weren't anything else other than don't be an idiot and bite people on the subway. You know, It was sad that you'd have to say that, but some people, like, got into this mindset, oh, I'm a vampire. I'm going to scare people. It's like, you know what? That's sort of considered assault. Don't bite people on the subway.
Right. Yeah, or do anything weird, I guess.
Put up a set of guidelines, just sort of like go in that, you know what, like do this, like these are like rules of etiquette, and this is everything. And people in New England were like, well, first of all, that's that New York garbage, and we don't want to deal with that, and we don't feel a need to have to, we do our own thing, and who are you to tell me what to do? And I was like, you know what, screw you then.
Right. Well, you also
people together, but it was like sort of like it was usually very slim, and you know, they did the vampire ball, which I was involved with, like until you know Sean and Christian dropped it. I mean, Sean died, and Christian kept it for a little bit after that, and then it sort of faded away when I left.
Oh.
And they just redid another one, which Sebastian from the old school in New York, like Endless Night festivals, decided to do one there this year. So,
Okay.
I think it, went over, but it was like he has a thing where when he does an event, it's more. He has the skills to be able to make it seem posh.
Yeah.
So there's like people that will go to it that might never have like had any kind of interest in vampires, other than wanting to be within his social circle. And when he does it, he puts out a vibe that this is an elite thing, and you are pleased to have been thought of so highly that you can attend this. So people spend big money to go there to be included on the like A-list.
Yeah, interesting. That it is, social elite,
And that was the thing with, like, it got to a point in New York where there were a lot of people that were, because in New York, like, the vampire community is sort of, like, slightly tied into the goth community. And the goth community sort of, and this is not anything people don't know, the goth community sometimes attracts broken people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they found out about, like, vampires, then they're like, okay, and they started getting involved in the vampires, and some of them weren't necessarily in the right mindset because they came from, like, homes that had issues and, relationships that had issues and things like that. So, and some of them were younger, and some of them sort of, like, had been involved in stuff that, probably was not real legal. So, when they got involved in it, it was like they were not looking for the elite attitude. This is later, like now.
Yeah.
Like they sort of, back when I was there, it was sort of still that, like, salon court system. But now it's like sort of this weird Game of Thrones. Where
Game of Thrones. Oh, God.
these young kids that are sort of like grew up on the streets, and they're like, I'm not bowing to anybody. I'm not going to listen to, so-and-so because, like, who are they?
Well, you had said back when you came to my class, and that there's a social structure, right?
There is, because it's sort of like it's built on, like, sort of almost like if you looked at the feudal guild structure, where when someone wants to gain entrance, like, someone has to vouch for them, and they bring them in and sort of mentor them. I mean, in the New York vampire community back when I was there, you couldn't really vote, or you could, talk to people, but you couldn't sort of make a social commentary on stuff within the court proceedings until you had been attending for a year.
Okay.
And after a year, they felt that, like, well, you probably know what's going on within the society, and you know who does what and things like that. So now you're actually considered a citizen.
Okay.
Before that, you're sort of like, like you're a visitor, you're a plebe, So,
right.
And then after that, during that process, there are different houses, and the different houses have their own rituals, their own. I mean, there was one up in Harlem that was based mostly on dedication to the martial arts.
Oh, interesting.
So they had a dojo that they had, their house met at the dojo, and their structure was sort of based on the martial arts and, like, peace of mind through, like, fitness of the body and, like, dedication to the discipline of the martial arts.
Okay.
So each one, and mine was based on magical teachings. And I told people, if you want to sort of be part of my house, I need you to not have been to Barnes & Noble and picked the book of Wicca, decided that was your path. Like, I need you to have investigated, maybe the Kabbalah, compared it to shaman teachings or druids. Like, I wanted you to see the line of magic running through different cultures. Every culture understands and lives a magical lifestyle, and see the thread that runs between them, that there are similarities between them, not go, no, I read one book and that spoke to me and that's it.
What about the crossover into Wicca? I mean, is there a blending there?
For vampires?
Yes.
No, not really.
No?
It's sort of like, because there is no, I mean, we have Muslim vampires, we have, like, born again Christian vampires. We have like atheist vampires. So it's like it's not a religious structure.
Right.
So there are Wiccan vampires, but it doesn't really have a hold on the entire community.
So religion doesn't have anything to do with the...
Other than through some households. Some households,
Yeah.
the ritual is part of their household. I mean, and we have like one of the households that's in New Jersey is sort of like based on like the Greek gods.
Hmm.
And they celebrate all of like the Greek festivals and things like that and stuff. They have different festivals dedicated to the different gods and stuff where they have rituals. But that's, within their household. The rest of the, I can tell you, most of the rest of the culture like would look at it and go, I don't really care who Persephone is.
Right. So again, that brings me to the question, then how do they identify as vampires? What's the common kind of
thread is like sort of the self-acknowledgement of it and like you understanding within yourself like where you do or do not fit within that scale. I mean, I guess it's like sort of the vampire Kinsey scale.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Where do you rate yourself? Like where do you, and it's like sort of, are you a vampire and to what extent do you consider yourself like follower of the vampire traditions? Because there is no whole culture. I mean, you have people that try and, there are some people, and I don't, I've never met them face to face, but there are some people that actually believe that, the mythical character of Dracula was real, and they are truly descendants of that mythical character.
Okay, so we're not, I mean, are we talking about Vlad the Impaler, who was a real
They're
person?
talking about Dracula, like the Bram Stoker.
The Bram Stoker. So it's sort of what do we call that in anthropology? There's a term for it. It's a stipulated lineage, right?
Yeah, and they believe that, and they believe, that, like, they couldn't actually change into animals and, like, everything, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I know non-vampire shamanic people who believe in shape-shifting.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that goes through the whole thing with, like, the witchcraft thing. I don't want to say Wicca because, most of us know Wicca is a fairly new term. Like,
yes.
It's like sort of back to, 1910 or 1920 with, like, Gardner.
Right.
So that's a new term, but, like, back to the traditions of actual witchcraft with, like, the flying ointments and stuff like that, and all the different things that had various herbs and stuff in it, and, back to the days of Carlos Castaneda and all those things with,
Sure, good old
shamans and
Castaneda, boy.
So it's like sort of like all of that has like the possibilities, but it's like sort of to say it's factual. Is it truth or is it your belief? It's like sort of like we get into that weird line of like what is it your truth or is it actual truth?
Right. I mean, what's the basis? What's the historical basis? But I'm still going to pick on this vampire question because for those of us who are not vampires, and not, believe me, I bring this up in every anthropology class I have because it's a way that it's a culture, it's a subculture.
Sure.
And I know my students, they still look at me like with the jaws on the ground, like, what? But I guess their question, and it's still kind of my question, is what makes a person decide or realize that they're a vampire, and what does that mean?
Well, it's going to be an individual question. That's like saying, do you follow voodoo?
Well, true, but when you follow voodoo, from my understanding, usually people are brought up with that culture somehow. I mean, not everybody. There are some people who just embrace it.
Nowadays, they're like followers of their own sort of path. It's like they're seeking something.
Well,
the vampires, it would be like it's once again, it's an individual thing. There is no like there is part of a mentorship, which would be what would be considered a siring, which would be bringing someone into your house. But whether or not, there's no rules for that house because each house is individual.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the rules of that house is because you don't know those until you're part of that house.
So again, I'm still going here because I want to figure out how to formulate this. I mean, like anybody. I mean, you could convert people can convert their religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
They can start, ghost hunters. So please don't get me into them.
Yeah, friend Vince is like a real. He goes, I've worked with ghost hunters. Not a big.
I need to talk to him. I've been focused on them for a while. I've been out quite when I can, and the paranormal community is another fascinating end of it, But I can understand maybe why a ghost hunter becomes a ghost hunter. Granted, they have, like vampires, they have their own special reasons.
Sure.
For
I think it goes back to like the original thing. Like, do you identify by placing yourself in one of those categories? Like, do you like feel you have a need for blood? If you do not get blood, then you will fall ill or you will not feel revitalized. Do you feel like the energy vampires? Do you feel the need to manipulate energy?
Yeah.
Are you doing it subconsciously or are you doing it willfully?
Yeah.
Because there's a whole code that, that's what usually the negative term, that's usually a psychic vampire.
Energy vampire.
Slur.
Oh, no. Exactly. In the corporate, what was that show, What We Do in the Shadows? Didn't they have an energy vampire?
Yeah. Because it's a slur, because it's sort of like most of those people do not understand what they're doing, and they're just draining people, because they have no concept of what they're doing.
I swear some of them do understand what they're doing, but they're sociopathic, and they don't care.
And now, energy vampires, like people that are pranic or manipulate, and Michelle used to be, tell people that she can manipulate energy.
Yeah.
She doesn't do it too much anymore because she's sort of gone more mainstream, doing things with the ghost hunters and things like that. So I think she sort of stays away from that area of her life. But, to me, and I've told people when they look at me because, it sort of dawns on them eventually, I say, manipulating energy, I said, all performers are psychic vampires.
Yes, they are. Actors.
You are building a cone of power through your performance, be it song or dance or anything else. You are building a cone of power, and you are, I said, if you read Uta Hagen, it says in there is no greater accolades than those of, the audience. I go, so you're pulling energy from the audience. You're giving something back, but you are pulling energy from the audience, for your performance.
Oh, absolutely. I can say, as an educator, teachers too. Teachers, the same thing. And that's what feeds, for artists, it's what feeds the artist and the art, and it gives the power to perform more because
it drives you.
Yeah, exactly. And you're putting out a lot of energy to do it.
I remember there was a gentleman that was an old school magician.
Mm-hmm.
Name was Del Rey.
Ah, yeah.
And I saw one of his last performances.
Yeah.
He was in Washington, and he was at a magic convention, and he was going to do some close-up magic, and then he was going to do a stage show. And they helped him into the room, for the close-up thing, and he was a very frail, little old man at the point in time, with an oxygen thing.
Wow.
Sort of I didn't even know if he was going to make it to the table the way he was, sort of tottering.
Right.
He sat down, and they introduced him, and you would have thought that they shot, 220 volts through him.
He just charged up, huh?
Lit up and just started to do his thing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, put the oxygen mask back on and sort of sat down. But it was at that point in time, his batteries were fully charged.
So that's a type of vampirism then.
Because you're draining energy. You're draining energy of the room. That's the same thing, and I know ghost hunters go, oh, vampires, spooky, we don't want to. I'm like, you're talking about the same stuff. What do you think you're talking about by saying, oh, we walked into a room and there's a cold spot?
Yes.
Well, the energy was drained out of the room, possibly. Oh, your batteries don't work.
Right.
Okay.
No, what's that about?
Yeah.
So you're saying ghosts are vampires?
Well, they're manipulating energy, so
sure they are.
It would be sort of a, almost a vampiric connection.
Right.
Because you're pulling energy from a source to give yourself vitality.
Well, yeah, that's the theory that they are energy and they need energy to, I guess, exist or manifest or.
So to me, that would sort of be right in the definition of an energy vampire.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, the whole belief that certain ones will drain the energy from the living, and then the living feels sick and
Yeah.
tired, and which, basically classically, that's what traditional beliefs in vampires were. When somebody was ill and fading, and usually from tuberculosis, Mercy Brown, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the whole family and everyone else was feeling it, and oh my God, must be a vampire, must be. We got to do something about her.
What is it? Is it in Thailand or something? The Aswang,
Yeah.
like one that sits on people's chests.
Oh yes.
Steals the breath and your vitality and everything from you.
That exists in almost every culture. The Hawaiians have what they call a choking ghost, and I think Koreans they were and they were all female in Asia. They were female entities, and they particularly targeted men. But which one Korean guy said, "Well, given the way we treat our women in life, you blame them for coming after us in death." But
the revenge of Lilith.
Pretty much those kinds of ideas of the choking ghost and they're in every culture that I've encountered, and there are certainly in our culture as well. Where something is pressing you down. That sleep paralysis thing, and that people have very real vivid. They think they're demons or whatever it could be, or some kind of spiteful spirit. If you want, I mean, all the theories on that. So, so I want to ask for you. I mean, in your history, because you were quite young when you decided, well, this is what I am, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about young. I was, probably in my 20s.
Oh, I thought you were young. Go ahead, just talk about that.
We sort of by working through. I wasn't always a magician. I got into magic through working at a haunted house.
Yeah.
So by working in the haunted house, I ended up working, on a lot of different, which most people think some haunted houses are actually haunted just because of, you're opening it's that Ouija board thing. You're opening a portal and, it comes through. But, we did that, and one of the gentlemen that had owned the haunted house goes, oh, well, you should possibly be a magician, because he had been a magician. And I go, I don't know, I thought you had to be sort of the seventh son of a seventh son, or they bring you out to the sacred grove and,
Yeah, make you one.
No, I wish it was like that. He goes, it's more like you go to a meeting.
Go to a meeting to be a magician?
And that's what I said. I go, isn't that like AA? And he goes, well, yeah, but we don't have donuts. Okay. So I started going, and then I ended up meeting a gentleman named Jeff McBride, who...
Right. I've heard about him, and...
Yeah. And he did a thing, he was doing a thing called Mystery School at the time, which
right.
was to let magicians know, which probably influenced my choices in the vampire house, but he was trying to introduce magicians into acknowledging magic as reality, because a lot of them sort of go, ta-da, and they go, well, you don't really believe this, do you? I just fooled you. And he was trying to get magicians away from that and go, no, you've created a wonder, leave it as a wonder. Don't, shatter the illusion once you've built it.
Right.
And he was trying to introduce, bring in the same room, ceremonial and ritual magicians in with stage magicians.
Oh, that's interesting.
So through that whole thing of, acceptance of ritual and talking to other different people and stuff, I ended up, bumping into someone, Sebastian, through at one of the horror conventions in New Jersey, and he's like, oh, we had this, and I sort of already knew that there was something different, and he goes, we have this, private events down in New York City, and I was like, well, there's going to be people, sitting there with, Spencer's cloaks on and, rolling dice and, sort of telling me that they're actually 400 years old and they live in Mom's basement.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it's not a role player thing. He's like, it's actual people. You go, okay. And then I sort of stalled for probably 6 months. And then eventually I went down, and that sort of started my path. I was like, okay, well, this makes more sense, and let me investigate this, because this is what, how I feel on, this thing, and it makes more sense, and why I feel much better after a performance and everything else. So I was like, okay, well, let me put A, B, and C together, and that's where I started my journey.
Right, and you realized that that's what worked for you.
And it was like somebody it was sort of like the light was turned on. It was like somebody, it was what worked for me, but it also because I didn't think of it before. I'm like, everybody feels better after a performance, unless your performance sucks,
Yeah.
but, and then I was like, oh, because of this, and it just sort of like everything clicked together, and it was sort of one of those things that it made it all make sense, and
Well, were you fascinated? Because, not all magicians are into the horror thing, or the dark.
I was into horror since like I was 5 years old.
Yeah. Right. You're like, yeah, me too. I mean, it's like.
Sort of like my mother sort of wasn't
Right.
real thrilled that like my grandmother, while babysitting me one time, like when I was 5, let me watch Frankenstein.
Very good. Well, kudos to your grandmother.
And my mother goes, "Why are you letting him watch that?" She goes, "Because he wanted to." And I'm
Sure.
like, "Well, he doesn't know." And I go, "Yeah." I mean, I got sent to when I was in regular elementary school, I got sent to the school psychologist because I would draw graveyards and coffins and things like that, and they thought that nobody of any regular, like normal mind would want to be involved in something so dark unless you've had like family issues.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of, and I'm like, no, I just like monsters. I respond better to them than I do regular people.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Because, you had a pretty good upbringing. Or is it upstate New York?
I was born in Westchester.
Oh, Westchester. Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
And we moved to Dutchess County after I graduated.
I see. Yeah.
Upstate, like sort of Hudson Valley region. And then from there went to Massachusetts. And then from Massachusetts, several places to North Carolina.
Well, you were in spooky. Yeah, I mean, come on. Sleepy Hollow. Isn't that Hudson Valley?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, Massachusetts. Oh, my God.
And like there's like lots of different things that I found, later on. It was like, it was like the first place I lived was Haverhill in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Everybody goes, "Oh, Rob Zombie's birthplace."
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but okay. And then,
Isn't it?
And then I lived over in North Andover,
Yeah.
sort of on the borderline of Lawrence and everything else. And went to Lowell, which everybody's like, "Oh, that's a big blues place and everything." I go, "Yeah." I'm like, I heard of like more of like the mills and factory stuff before I heard of like the blues connection. And then they're like, "Well, that was where Jack Kerouac and everything." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, you were following an interesting path.
Yeah. So.
And I know you were involved because we talked. I mean, you were into the paranormal, I guess the ghost hunting thing, but your past life regression.
Yeah, I was doing that for a little while. It's like, and I Vince tried to get me to bring some of it back, like with, like, he's like, "Oh, you're going to do your show in Baltimore, and then I want you to do, like, not a theatrical, like theatrical seance, but I want you to do an actual seance." And I go, "Vince, like, you're a psychologist. You enjoy that stuff." I go, "I don't bring happy stuff back."
Yeah.
I go, just from my energy and the way I do it, I go, it might be things people need to hear and stuff like that during a seance. I go, but I'm not bringing them like, they're not meeting Lucille Ball and Houdini. I go, I bring back stuff that like they don't want to really have to deal with.
So that's pretty much what you find, that when you do that, they're dealing with past trauma.
That's what seemed to come up. It was stuff that, like, hopefully I'm not betraying anything, but during one of my last ones, like, the girl's like, and I go, you don't have to talk about anything afterwards, but you look like you want to. And I go, "What did you see?" And she goes, "My dead grandfather showed up holding my miscarried baby."
Oh, Lord. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was, like, somebody else, like, I had 2 people there that were on the verge of tears, and I go, "Do you want to talk about it?" And they're like, "No."
Now, is this stuff then that when they're going through the experience with you, they're the only ones who are getting those messages? You're not channeling anything?
I open it, like, I sort of, like, I do the past life regression, and I sort of, like, bring them to an area, and whoever is speaking to them is speaking directly to them. I'm not channeling voices or anything else. Like, they are speaking to whoever shows up to talk to them directly.
Okay, so is this done through a sort of hypnotic state? Yeah. And then are these people talking through the experience, or where is it that?
They just sort of mentally, I give them space and I like let them
Oh, okay.
during him, and then they sort of go on the journey on their own.
Okay, and then sometimes they'll reveal to you what they had.
At the end, I give them the talk, because I don't want to just sort of like, to me, it's like I have a routine that I do, and it's just sort of like, this is a sidebar, but I have a routine that I do that deals with, in 1901, there was an orphanage fire in Rochester, New York, and several children burned to death.
Yeah.
And it was like, the point was the fire department couldn't get to the orphanage in time because it was January in like Rochester,
Yeah.
and at that time they had horse-drawn carriages.
Right.
So they couldn't get there, and the whole premise of the thing is that these children slowly burned to death in the thing.
Yeah.
Tell people beforehand. I go, you know what? Like, here is the documentation. This is not bullshit. I'm not making this up for show purposes. This actually happened. We are going to be dealing with this. If this is going to be too much for you to deal with children that burned in a fire, like, I'm giving you permission to leave the room now.
Well, do you think that that's kind of the purpose of whether these memories or even in hauntings? Do you think that's sort of the purpose of a lot of it?
I think a lot of it is sort of like, for me, when I do things like that, I need them to acknowledge that history is real, and not all of it is happy, but you need to remember those moments.
Yeah.
And sort of like those souls, if they're still around, like, need to be acknowledged. And I try and tell people, I'm like, you talk about, like, like so many magicians do routines about Jack the Ripper or the Titanic. And I'm like, you have to realize that there were actual people. This is not a fictional story. Like, those are actual people that perished. So, the premise of the one I do about the orphanage is I have pictures and I have memorial cards, and they're both separated, and through choices from the person in the audience, those cards mixed up end up finding their own memorial card.
Interesting.
And that's my thing at the end. I go, we go through life, and we struggle and we struggle and struggle, and the best any of us can hope for in the end is after it's all said and done that we're remembered.
Yeah.
And that's what I leave them with. I'm like, you know what? Hey, I told you those people's story. Hopefully you'll remember them now.
Right. Yeah, and true. I think that's what some people historians certainly believe in that. And but I wonder if people in the paranormal community, I've run into them, and some feel that's why they do what they do, because somebody is really screaming to have their story told.
Yeah, and I think you sort of like, to me, and I know other people that I do things with and stuff feel the same way. Theatrical magic shouldn't just be all like applause and like laughter. There should be a roller coaster of like bringing you through the human existence.
Yeah.
There should be sorrow, there should be love, loss, everything else, but it should be the whole full palette, not just one side of like, oh, we go there. Like, I want you to feel at the end, sort of like you have been on a roller coaster ride, and that you've been through the whole, like, at the end, like,
Right. Yeah, I know. I get that. That's good. That's what good story is about. And that's what humans are here for.
Yeah, I'm not a great writer, but I hopefully can tell the story like verbal. I'm the verbal storyteller, like, so,
Yeah, no, some people are better at that, you know what I mean?
Writing, I'm like, I don't have the dedication to write.
Yeah.
I go, I give those people credit, like, that actually do, because I self-edit too much.
Yeah.
I, like, put down a paragraph, and I go back and edit that paragraph, and then I try and write another sentence, and I write it down, and then I go back and edit it again.
No, you're part of your oral tradition.
Yeah.
And sadly, there are cultures that still do that quite a bit, but it's a really very viable, probably and it's definitely the oldest form of human story. And writing is supposed to be more accurate, but creative license, right. So
I just don't have, like, it's the same way people go, oh, we're going to go to karaoke, and I go, I don't sing. And they go, why not? You should just, I'm like, people actually spent years, like, trying to get that skill down and I'm like, sort of like it's sort of like to me like the uncle that's at a birthday party,
Yeah.
going, let me show you a card trick.
Oh, yeah.
Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So, I mean, you're into the horror thing as a really young person, because I know you're a real aficionado of horror films.
Yeah, one of my friends jokes, and he goes, I've never seen anybody actually, like, sort of have as many. They're like, you had at your apartment before you had, because I recently in June had to move back home to take care of my mother.
Uh-huh.
Her health has declined, and it's sort of like my father passed away
Yes.
several years ago, and, my mother's health declined, and they were like, she's falling too much, you need to
Yeah.
give up my own apartment and sort of move back here. But in my other apartment, I had like an entire wall, like, 12 shelves just
Wow.
of horror DVDs. And my friend goes, I have never even in a like video store seen that many horror DVDs. And I'm like, well, if you're into it, and he goes, well, you could find it on the internet. I go, if I want to watch it, I want to watch it when I want to watch it, not have to look for it.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, that's why you want to be a good collector, but
Yeah.
but that, I just so do you think that fact and that attraction has
I think it awakened like sort of like me being more accepting
Mhm.
to like darkness being okay. It's like sort of like finding the beauty, like Edgar Allan Poe, like finding the.
Sure.
I mean, he had his own downfalls, but finding the beauty and acceptance of.
Poor Poe, he's been so, what's it called, maligned. He's been maligned, and no, it wasn't a lot like what people thought.
I mean, a lot of that was Griswold. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, Griswold vilified
Yeah.
Poe because he hated him.
Yeah.
But
And he bombed, like, and sort of like ruined his sort of like, hey, I'll publish your works if you throw me a few bucks.
Oh yeah. Well, Poe I just did, because I did a master's degree in writing just last year, and I was going back to Poe, who I hadn't read in a long time. But when I'm reading Poe, and I'm reading a lot more of Poe than I knew, we like the favorites, but I was looking at almost everything.
Yeah.
Boy, was he funny, and was he critical?
I mean, he was old school, like, he was like one of the original goths.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's like people, they go, oh, goths are so depressed. I go, you know what, where that depression comes from?
Yeah.
I'm like, it goes to the old school of actual Gothic literature.
Right.
Where you understand the beauty of everything, and you understand in your life there will not be enough moments for you to be able to appreciate and enjoy everything that there is.
Right, and remember, he had gone, in his day, life and death were like crossing your fingers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people don't realize that when I tell them that, like about some of the other
Right.
things. I go, they don't realize that, back in that day, if you had 5 children, probably 3 of them were going to die.
Yeah.
And it would be up to you to, like, wash and bathe and clothe and
take care of them in
the
their
body of, like, your
Yeah.
dead child, and, like, have the wake in your living room.
Yes, or with photography, they were propped up and taking pictures of like they were living,
Yeah.
and they would really truly, some would try to keep those dead bodies around as long as they could before they would put them
Yeah.
to the final resting
Like,
place.
nowadays we have the thing, like, somebody gets sick, like they're in a hospital, like if they pass away, they go to a morgue and an undertaker picks them up, and then like you drop a suit off to the undertaker, and the next you see they're in a box like with makeup on.
Yeah, exactly.
I go, sanitized, like we've removed any of like the early forms of the grieving process.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. Who wrote the book in the 70s, The Denial of Death?
Oh, Kubler-Ross?
Yeah. No, it wasn't that. Oh God.
That was the steps of grieving.
Right. No, I can't think of his name. He was some psychologist, or maybe an American philosopher. Yeah, I can't. He's in a Woody Allen movie. But no, I remember reading the book in the 70s and looking at how American modern culture sanitized the death thing, and how it's, how can I put it? It's been institutionalized and industrialized, that laws and regulations have it that you can't do what our ancestors did, where, well, Pa died, let's just dig a hole in the back.
Yeah.
You can't do that because of health regulations. You have entire social institutions and industries now focused around death. And as much as I'll tell you, I have dreams of I'll just go dig my own hole in the ground and, just go bury myself and lie in it.
A lot of people don't realize the whole,
Yeah.
having done my own research and things, on my,
Yes.
along with, the shelves of that, I have all my, postmortem books and the
Sure.
funeral director books and all the other things like that, and my coroner books and things like that. Many people don't realize all the stuff that goes through, the embalming process, and I'm like,
Why?
you might want to think about, whether or not you want your body to go through it.
Well, yeah. Why do you want to do that? I don't know. I mean, I tend to be I'm a naturalist.
People, they're sewn shut, and your eyelids are going to be glued closed.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that in itself is kind of a horror story.
Yeah.
And what was it I read? An article was in the news a month ago or so where a man had donated his mother's body because she died of an advanced Alzheimer's, and he donated her body, and she was as much as she could agree to it, she was fine with that. But then he said he was having all these nightmares, and she was angry at him, and he couldn't figure out why, and somehow, and I don't remember how he found out, some investigative journalist found out that some of these agencies that will take your body you donate for science, they're not using them for science. They're selling them for other purposes. So her body apparently was sold to the U.S. military, to the Army, to be propped in a chair and put under an IED to see the effects of IEDs on the body once they're detonated and what happens to the body. So I guess it was a way of trying to understand how to make better protective gear, right?
Yeah.
But he had no clue what happened to his mother.
Yeah.
And he said, but
tell you that.
No, they're not. They weren't going to. The agency he sold the body to never revealed. Right. They sold. Well, he didn't sell it. He donated it.
Yeah.
He donated her body, and thinking they were going to look at her brain and all this. And no, they sold it to the Army. They're going to make a buck on it.
Yeah.
He didn't know, but he said, "Boy, my mother somehow knew because she was coming at me in my dreams, and my mom was a nice woman. I don't understand why she was so angry."
Yeah.
But what a hurt, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe there was a connect between her spirit and her body. I mean, there are theories about that.
If you believe in the whole continuation of your consciousness, you're going to be aware of all these different things happening, and
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it opens up the whole idea of the vampire too. Oh, the immortal being. That.
Well, somebody said one time, they go, well, the fascination with most people, through their determination of sort of the fascination with the vampire was that all other forms of creature, there is immense suffering, like the werewolf.
Yes.
And, the zombie is sort of one of those, you have to be dead and you come back as a rotting corpse. So, the vampire, you come back with an improved body and you just can't go out during the day and you have to kill people to live. They're and most people would be okay with that.
Yeah, I think most people would if that was a
you get to live forever, you just have to kill people. And they're okay.
Right. Well, and don't think that there haven't been those who tried. They believed in that nonsense. And was it Countess Bathory?
Yep, that's what I tell everyone Jane about her too.
Yeah.
I talk about it, and I go, she did that, to over 500 women, and it was sort of one of those, they couldn't do anything at that time because you couldn't execute royalty.
Right.
And she was royalty. She had done all those murders, but technically on the books, and far as Hungary was concerned, the only reason you could kill a royal was for treason.
Right.
So they ended up walling her up,
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They did a passive aggressive kind of.
Yeah, it was sort of we're going to put you in here. We'll still feed you, but you'll never get to be, free or touch another human being or do anything else.
Yeah, right. You're totally no contact, and probably the food was very limited. They weren't going to feed her so much.
No, I'm sure they probably gave her moldy bread and everything else. But it's but when you think about it, if the numbers were that high, if they had stuck her in a jail, either one of the jail jailers or one of the inmates or one of, like, you know, anybody else that was in that location probably would have had some kind of connection to somebody she would have done away with.
Oh, yeah, that would have been the end.
So they would have just killed her in the, you know, killed her in the jail. But, you know, it's, you know, most people don't go, oh, okay. You know.
Yeah, well, no, but the fact, you know, that level of a belief system she had, and then the psychosis.
It was like the struggle to, you know, sort of admit your own mortality. And she thought that, you know, supposedly the story went that she smacked a servant, and where the blood fell on her hand, she thought it looked younger. So in her mind, that was the secret to, you know, being able to maintain her look.
Right. Well, she's not the only one.
We just, you know, buy some kind of, like, stem cell laden, like, cream and you put it on your body. But, you know.
Well, actually, I think in North Korea, I think it was Kim Il-sung, the grandfather, you know, the first guy, the grandfather of Kim Jong-un, and he allegedly would get donated, blood from virgin girls, and either drink it or put it in some sort of topical thing, because he believed that gave him longevity.
Well, somebody was doing it, like, and I don't really know where they were doing it, but I read someplace they were doing vampire facials.
Really?
Yeah, it was like sort of like, let me see if I can pull it up, but it was sort of like it's some kind of a thing. It was like sort of like has blood or something in the, you know, it's like, let's see if I can.
What, human placenta? I don't know.
I don't know what's in it. It was sort of like.
Vampire facials.
Yeah.
Wow.
Photos on Instagram. Something has like plasma in it.
Okay, like human blood plasma.
Yeah, PRP, platelet rich plasma.
Wow.
So it's like if you look it up, you can go into.
I'll look it. I'll look it up.
Vampire facials.
Vampire facials with PRP in it.
Yeah.
Holy cow! And the FDA approves that.
I guess they'll tell you like, oh well, it's purified, blood, so it's okay. You know, we're good with it.
So
there's profit to be made.
So when you're a sanguine vampire and you are consuming human blood, I mean, are there health concerns and?
Hold on for one second.
Yes. Yes, well, you know, if you have to go, I mean, I can call you. I got your number now. I can call you anytime.
My mother was getting ready to go to church. And
okay.
I'm like, why isn't he helping me get you out the door? And
I'm
on the phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? I go, I'm talking to somebody for a magazine interview. And he's like, magazines? I go, yeah, you know those things that you don't read? Like, like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this little magazine is going to go do something. We have one issue. I spent... Oh man, I spent I don't know how long just building a new website and getting that issue out. And I'd started it in August, and I finally got it out in October. And I'm trying to get this one out by December. But and I mean, you can go to paranormalworldmag.com. You can see the website.
Okay.
And so what and I am trying to. The magazines are they're on Kindle, and then they're on Magazine Cloud, MagCloud, so I'm trying to raise a little bit of money because I'm paying for the website and the security alone for that, because websites have changed quite a bit because of security issues. So you have to get what they call certificate of a secured, like that's where you get the HTTPS, what do you call it? It means an HTTP secured site. So that was not cheap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to hope the little proceeds from the magazine will do two things. Help maintain that, and then, help finance some of the documentary work I'm trying to do with a couple of filmmakers here.
So what is the title of it?
Paranormalworldmag.com. So it's one big Paranormal World mag. So it's just called Paranormal World Magazine. I mean, I can email you the last issue. That's the first issue. I'm not saying it's all that great because I'm like running. It's almost like being a one-woman show. I had a couple of writers, and I'm trying to get a couple of other writers. I don't want it all to be all me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. But and I'm teaching, so it's really tough to, on top of grading hundreds of papers for college, and doing all this. It's hard for me to sit down and I'm going to just say write well.
Yeah.
But I did a couple of pieces on some ghost hunting things. There's a ghost hunting 101, I called it. So local ghost hunters, and I'm sure it's not just local, but they make some income by running little, I guess, ghost hunting training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so they find a haunted location, and for about $30 you go, and maybe you get a little dinner with it if it's at a restaurant.
Yeah, that's what Ron Van Helsing, the one that does the stuff in New England.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of make, because for them don't quit your day job.
That's the thing. It was like he's had like 4 radio shows and does all these other stuff, and I'm like, he's like constantly doing stuff, and I'm like, I'm assuming that like you're making $5 here and $10 here, like sort of like, so if you do 50 of them, then
yeah, it's
$200.
It's probably I've been very interested with, just like I was with you, in the vampire community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in the ghost hunting community.
Yeah.
Because I've been kind of following some on and off for about 10 years now. And I've got some video. I just haven't really edited it into anything. But I find, they wind up going bankrupt. The expense of all this equipment that they allegedly need to be considered authentic. One told me a couple weeks ago, you're looking at a layout of about $5,000 for all the K2 meters and everything else they use. To other groups, it's $20,000-$30,000 just in equipment, and then their marriages. I've seen them go through divorce court over this stuff. It can destroy their families.
Yeah, they had the one. What was it? The one couple killed her and committed suicide.
Yes, they were part of the Ghost Adventures team, and so what was that? And Vlad, you're in the business. The ego. Oh my God. I even had 2 ghost hunting concerns. One was Maine ghost hunters. I like those guys. They're scientists, and but they told me they had to back down from doing anything with me. And I saw the actual texts and emails they were getting. They were getting death threats from other ghost hunting groups just for talking to me. And they weren't the only ones. There was a guy down in New Jersey, and I liked him because he's a physicist. He's a bit of a blowhard too, kind of an ego guy, but he had some really interesting ideas of EVPs, from a physics point of view. And he also had to back out. He said, I had a guy show up at my door with a gun threatening me. And I'm like, why? And he said, because, I'm talking to you. And I'm like, well, I'm nobody. What the hell? I'm a lowly anthropologist. I haven't done anything. But yeah, there was...
This is a click.
There's something but this was like down in Jersey. I mean, I'm up here in Maine, and I also had another couple. The 2 women. Remember those women? That's how I met you at the haunted
house.
Yeah, we went to the haunted attraction down in Nashua, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
That's how I met you and the women, the 3 ladies.
Yep.
Whoa! Did they go psycho nuts on me? Holy cow. I mean, the one who was a demonologist, she was going to call the demons of hell on me. Oh, she went ballistic on me. And that was when I said, I'm not dealing with this. I'm trying to.
What is their big issue, with that you actually don't, drink the Kool-Aid, that you examine things under
yeah, they don't like it.
Scope?
They don't like, nobody likes that, Vlad.
Yeah.
I don't care what field I've been in. I worked in D.C. for a decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got blacklisted down there too. Because I am the one who's gonna, hey, the emperor's not only buck naked, but he's butt ugly.
Yeah.
You know, I busted some Native American medicine. I busted one Native American medicine woman for being a total fraud, and I didn't do it deliberately. I'm being an anthropologist. I'm just sitting here hanging out. Let me hear your stories. That's all I do.
Yeah.
But then suddenly it came out that this woman was not the Denai Navajo medicine woman she claimed. She was actually of Albanian descent from Massachusetts. Not 1 ounce of native blood in her. And this was in front of a whole bunch of medicine people, you know, elders and that. And I never got invited to brunch again. But they don't like, you know, it's people, you know, maybe in your community, in the vampire community too, you said there's the drama. Well, what happens when you challenge the guy who lives in his grandmother's basement and thinks he's 100 years old?
It depends on, like, how you know, are you perceived as, you know, it depends on, like, what happens is, like, if you have a weird, you know, thought process or a weird belief or something, most of the people are like, in the vampire community, when I was there,
Yeah.
you would just sort of, like, be left to your own merits, like you would, but if you become a danger to the community,
Yeah.
then you get, like, sort of what they call exiled. And
Sure.
that means you cannot come to any function, any meeting, anything to do with the accepted forum of the community for a year and a day.
Hmm.
I mean, some people have been permanently banned, but, you know, it's sort of like that's for doing really stupid crap, you know, like trying to bring underage
Yeah.
to the club and, like, sort of stuff that would bring, you know, the fires of hellfire down on everybody, you know, because nobody wants to be walked down in handcuffs because they're in a club with minors.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was the same in the BDSM community.
Yeah.
They had rules. They had a lot of strict rules too. And granted, you know, there were people, and I encountered them when I was doing the research on that community. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised they're sitting in a prison today.
No.
They were lucky they weren't caught for what the stuff they were. The stuff I would let me tell you. You remember that guy Wiener, what was he, an Ohio congressman who would send pictures of his junk to everybody?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, before him, because I was in D.C. and I started doing that project on the BDSM community. Tell me how many senators I talked to who were doing that to me. And of course, the minute they cross that line, I just, you know, I'm done with you. We're not having any contact conversation. But I didn't go to freaking TMZ with it. You know, this stuff is as old as the ages. But again, it makes you question. There's a psychology going on and a narcissism that's there, and I'm finding that to be a consistent factor when I'm dealing in the paranormal, even in the cryptozoology world.
Yeah.
You know who Lauren Coleman is?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, so he's a prominent cryptozoologist. He created and runs the Cryptozoology Museum here in Portland, Maine.
Okay.
It's really cool. And I remember that museum when it opened, when it first started, and it was downtown. Now they've moved it a little outside. It's in town, but it's a little further out, and it's got a bigger space. But when I went to see it last summer, it was like a personality cult thing to him. It was like going into the temple of Lauren Coleman. And I've met Lauren. I've talked to him a couple times. I just saw him at a Parrot conference last summer. And he's fine and he's nice enough. But I'm telling you, there it is again, you know?
Well, it's like any of the ones you have, like the true, you know, the avant-garde, the true believers.
Right.
You know, and they're the ones that, you know, you do. I mean, it's like sort of like, you know, the Opus Dei. You know, you do not question the doctrine. Like, you know, the doctrine is the doctrine. And, like, you know, woe be to he who, like, upsets the apple cart and, you know, does not follow to the word, you know. And it's like, well, some understand the concept behind it, and you don't have to. And that's like I try and tell my mother. She goes, "Well, why don't you go to church?" I go, "Because I don't really believe in the church."
Yeah.
I don't really feel a need to. I don't need an intermediary to if I want to talk to God, I'll talk to God. I don't need somebody to go between.
There's a thought: vampires who talk to God.
Yeah, so it's sort of, well, some vampires think that they are God, but
Well, you said that there are Muslim vampires. There are born-again Christian vampires. So how does that work?
well, they're just not sort of the, sort of there's, I guess, because there's the born again. I mean, there's one of every type, sort of there, Baptist ones or.
Really, you've met these Baptist vampires?
Yeah.
Really? They try to convert you?
No.
Okay.
And I've yet to try and down here, I'd sort of I've questioned them just because it's sort of I mean, I've sat down and actually I haven't read the Quran, but I've sat down and I have actually read the Bible,
Yes.
As a book, and I've read the doctrine from the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've read the Mormon saint later
Right.
teachings, and I've read all these things, and I try and talk to the Baptists, and I go, so I was born a Catholic, so what's the difference between being a Catholic and and a Baptist? And they go, well, I can't really explain it to you. We just don't believe in the Pope and stuff. And I go, oh, seems like
Yeah.
there's more to it than that.
Well, there's a lot more to it, but most people don't understand the history of religion, and the Western religion. But the fact that
find out when I was in my college, when I was in Dutchess Community College,
Yes.
doing the Communication and Media Arts program. They were pick these classes. What do you want to choose? And there was one. It was the history of theology and religion.
yeah,
And I was well, here I am, studying, broadcast journalism and everything else. That seems like that would be interesting. And they go, it doesn't fall within your curriculum.
oh, they wouldn't let you do it.
No, they were oh, you could choose it as an add-on free elective, but it would not be considered towards your degree. And I
Oh,
go, why not? I go, don't you think that people that are trying to be journalists and stuff might want to understand the underlying regions behind why things are happening in the world?
no, absolutely.
And they go, no, it's not part of your curriculum. I'm like, oh, okay. And this is back in 2000, so maybe
Wow.
19 years later, they saw the folly of that with the way the world is going.
Sure. Well, I mean, one thing, in anthropology, next week, that's our unit is religion.
Yeah.
And we look at everything from animism up to, the splintering of the Western religions. And then we get a whole week to cover that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a very long history. But what still floors me is that you would have a person identifying as a vampire, but who has that faith-based notion, because they seem so contradictory.
Religion really cross sections with it's vampirism is not a religion. It's it's sort of a more of an identity. I am a white, male. It's sort of and I mean
Like Irish American.
yeah, it's sort of one of those type things. It's an inner core thing versus a religious value.
But however, I'm going to pick at this because, however, when you think...
The answer is because I'm not Baptist, so I can't...
Right. No. This is just me,
Yeah.
Because when I think, and I've dealt with this in the ghost hunting community, born again Christians who are paranormal investigators, and I have been on radio shows with a few of them, and
There?
internet. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, Vlad? Oh, crap.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I don't know what happened.
Went dead. It was sort of
Oh, I don't know. Could be my freaking phone. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but it's. I try to say, considering what I know of fundamentalist Christianity and even what I know about Islam, the bit that I know, it just seems so
It's
counterintuitive. Let's put it that way, to embrace an identity or a practice that in their literature would be very much condemned.
I guess it's sort of like, they're more of the, the modern versions. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know where the modern versions of those religions, because it's like my mother's religion, like when she was growing up in the Catholic Church, like wouldn't have been the same way as like my aunt when she was living in like Putnam County and went to a Catholic church that had like folk masses.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mother grew up with like sort of like the mass still being said in Latin.
Yes, exactly. I know it has evolved.
Yeah.
And I know that I've seen more fundamentalist Christians tapping into the paranormal, and maybe they'll try to say it's angels and demons and not so much the souls of the dearly departed. What?
That was the whole Twilight crap. She didn't want vampires to actually be vampires.
Oh, yeah. She was
they have to be like, they have to be angelic. That's why they sparkle.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, that's true. She was a Mormon
yeah,
housewife.
I'm like sort of like I hate the sparkling part, but I have more issues with the like underlying Mormon teachings that are in the book with like the subjugated female presence, where like it's okay for a stalker to be in your bedroom like staring at you because they really love you, or telling you that you can't talk to certain people and they're going to beat them up like if you talk to them. I'm like, that's a little more spooky Mormon stuff than it is sparkly vampire.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I have to admit, I'd never read them. I never saw the movies. Nothing intrigued me at all.
I felt that like I really couldn't speak out against it unless I read it. It was sort of one of those like, internally, I just sort of felt I can't bash it unless I actually have seen it with my own eyes.
Right. No, I gotcha. It's like a lot of things. Not a lot, but it's like I just had I think I tried watching Twilight, when it's been on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I can't get through the first 2 minutes.
No.
It's just, I can't stomach it. I'd rather watch some god-awful, horrible B-movie than that.
Yeah.
And it could be I don't appreciate the veiled attempt at, trying to preach some, again, her personal belief system. But yeah, look what it got her. I mean, she, it made it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I always try to figure this stuff out. And actually I've got a vampire concept based on a short story I wrote. Oh, I don't know when I did that. Before I met you, I know long time ago, but that short story actually got an honorable mention, and then there was a publisher interested, but it didn't happen. You know what I mean? It didn't go anywhere, but now I've fleshed it out into a fuller series type of concept, because I'm working with a couple of production. I'm in touch with a couple of production companies, and so I'm really hoping there's gonna be some interest in it, because I mean it, Vlad. If they have an interest in that damn show, I want to involve you, and I mean, this, they're going to pay for this thing too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have some interested parties, but it's kind of, I wanted to touch on a lot of the ideas you and I have talked about. What is the identity? How do people identify as this? And gender issues are another thing. I don't know if you run into that in the vampire community.
No, because nobody really questions. It's like sort of like whatever you want to be.
Thank you.
The only thing they question is like sort of, I mean, because they're okay with the like, they're more okay with the sexuality, and you saying you're a vampire or you're a werewolf or a lycan or whatever.
Yeah.
Lycan is more of a fantasy realm thing. So a lycanthrope, like, they would, like, they're okay with something like that. But when you start going into this, I'm a fusion, like other can, part fairy, part, and then they're like,
No, we don't sparkle, right?
Yeah, it was sort of like, it's sort of like the hairs on the back of their neck, like, sort of raise up, because they're sort of like role player.
Yeah, LARPers. Yeah, they want to cross a lot of bridges and.
So they're more like peeved by those people than they are like, because people, plenty of people have shown up like in the past. I mean, because where we were on 14th Street, like when Mother was there, the other night was Click and Drag.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know what? It was like, and one of the guys that was one of the bouncers at the door was like a very tall, like skinny guy, but used to dress like in schoolgirl outfits. So it's like, who cares? It's like nobody questioned any. It's like whatever, gender you want to be. Like nobody cares. Like until you're looking to make out with them, then the question comes up.
I see.
Otherwise, who cares?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of one of the points. That's why I've got this colleague out in. I don't know if you met her. She helped me set up the studio here when the one that failed, but she's been working out in Vegas as in production, and so she's trying to get something. She's trying to get this project, find the funding for it. But yeah, that's the point, and she likes it because I'm trying to say in that community that that's not an issue. That whole gender identity, that everything's very fluid. And I guess that's a theme that may be becoming popular among other things. But
it really ever was like within any of the subcultures.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever was an issue until it became a political issue.
Right, and then that's the question. I bring this up when we just talk without vampires involved. I mean, when we talk about gender issues in my social science courses, why is it such a, again, polarized issue? And it is political. Whether...
Those boundaries, you're pushing their comfort zones.
Exactly.
It's the same way, like, how many people blew a gasket when The Exorcist came out?
Oh, they did. They went nuts. And
oh, my God, it's the young girl and all of this stuff, and, it's Satan, and she's okay with a Ouija board, and Satan, and, doing foul things to her body in the name of Satan.
Yeah, right. Well, and, the Ouija board was not vilified until that production.
But I don't think half the people knew that they existed.
No, I had them. I mean, my mom used them.
But I'm saying, like, the general public.
No, they didn't.
Really, they didn't know about it. They were sitting for many a year on the toy store shelves and never noticed them.
They were big, in the early part of the 20th century. I mean, late turn of the last century, because, it was the spirit board was a fun thing.
Yeah.
And people some believed it, some didn't. It became a toy. And my mother, we used them. I mean, there were some interesting results. But, it didn't become this evil demon toy until The Exorcist. That's the book and the film that vilified the Ouija board.
Yeah.
It really wasn't looked at.
And they go, well, when, seances are filmed. Like, no, seances have been around. I'm like,
oh, ages.
I'm like,
forever.
Lincoln's wife did seances in the White House.
Yes.
I go, so they've been around, and they go, well, the Ouija board isn't. I go, they didn't use Ouija boards originally. I go, they used cabinet cards with alphabet letters on them around with like a wine glass or a brandy glass. I go, so it's not the fact that they just didn't have, they had pseudo Ouija boards, but they weren't Parker Brothers.
Well, they were called spirit boards, and the only reason it was called Ouija is because the wife of the guy who said, let's market this, because she practiced with the spirit board. There was a famous, I guess, medium whose name was, it's not Ouija. The woman spelled her name wrong. That's why we got the word Ouija. But she named it after this very famous clairvoyant medium called Ouija or something, and of course the woman didn't realize that her name was not spelled or pronounced that way. So it looks like we and ya, the words for yes in French and German, but it's not.
Yep.
It was a misappellation to honor a spiritual medium that the wife of the guy who marketed it, she wanted to, kind of get, whatever.
Yeah.
Praise that woman.
Yes.
That's the story of it. There's people really don't know the story of it. But it wasn't considered a toy of the devil until that damn movie.
Yeah.
And well, okay, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I still have. I don't know if it's our original Ouija board. I still have a Ouija board from way back when.
Also, my mother didn't realize. She goes, well, because she saw like I bought one of those ones from the spirit store, one of those little plastic mats. Because I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to. This is cool. If I want to go someplace, I have a plastic mat that looks like a Ouija board.
Right.
She goes, well, that's bad. Like when I go, do you realize there's about 20 of them in a bin upstairs?
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I have one that was specifically made for me by a Salem witch.
Yeah.
It was created especially for me.
Right.
Well, aren't they bad? I go, no. If you listen to The Exorcist, yes. I go, but
they're not.
Commentary on the church than it was like about like.
Hey, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the movie, and I hope the hell I get to do, somehow do it. But, the apps you get in your phone now, the little ghost apps. Yeah, I'm waiting for that movie to come out where the app is the next portal to hell.
Could be. I think it's more of a like let's spy on your life and.
Oh no, but I mean you can bring all that in. Believe me, I've been researching the apps. I even met who are those ghost hunter guys, Steve and Tango from the original Ghost Hunters. Yep. Talked to them about it. What do you think of these ghost apps? He says, so what a crock of crap, They don't have any faith in them. And of course, Steve Gonsalves, he doesn't believe in ghosts. He's part of this program. It's a job for him. He's curious. But he said, I don't believe in this. I want to debunk everything I can debunk. Yes, there's stuff we encounter we just can't explain. But I am not going to say it's a ghost.
Yeah.
And I said, good for you. Quite interesting. Considering that's how they're making their living. And they're actually making a living at it because they got, TV shows and
walks and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, they got into the right vocation. But yeah, it is. I don't know. It's fascinating stuff, and I do look at that as a bit different from the vampire community.
Well, the vampire community, that's like not. I don't know if that's like. I would say that's more like it's almost become a genre, more as a subculture.
Well, in what sense? How would you define that?
The ghost hunting thing has become like horror films. Like it's a segment now of like people that are almost following a hobby.
Well, yeah, and the whole thing with the parent. Well, so the ghost hunting thing is in the last, I'd say 15, maybe not even 20, but yeah, maybe 20 years now, almost 20. It's like everyone and their mother wants to be, doing it. Yeah. More people are willing to talk about it. In my day, you didn't talk about living in a haunted house. You were nuts. You were crazy. They'd label you in horrible ways. So you kept it to yourself, And the only time I could ever talk about the weird experiences that I witnessed and still have friends who were witness to it. And it wasn't just me. That means it wasn't just my imagination. I had witnesses, and I'm still in touch with some of these people, and we could never talk about it. We just say, well, that happened, and we don't have an explanation as to why that happened. And it's, who do you go to, But now it's a given that, okay, I've got a haunted house, or maybe I wish I had a haunted house. I mean, a lot of people I've talked to who go to these Ghost Hunting 101, they're dying to have a ghost experience. They're there because they never had one.
Well, it's sort of like this. It almost, to me, draws the same people that should probably be talking to a psychologist, but are more comfortable talking to a tarot card reader. Yeah,
it does. I've run into cases.
To listen to them and validate things that they think are happening in their life, So it's like they're like, "Oh, there's weird stuff happening in my house." Like, "Oh, it must be ghosts."
Well, we just had one up here. I have a colleague I work with at the juvenile prison. I work at 2 prisons, teaching college courses this is part-time. But one of my colleagues said her friend is terrified in her apartment, and I got a ghost hunter friend of mine. I tried to get another one. I'm the kind of person I want to bring in more than one opinion. And we went, and I don't know what to say. The woman herself, I think is a recovering drug addict from what I could souse out. There had been 2 deaths in this apartment building. By what? Overdosing. Meaning it was an area that, low income,
Mm-hmm.
recovering people. And this woman also was, trying to go to college and make something of her life. But I could, there was a personality trait that this woman's very nervous and, probably fighting addiction, And I have to say, there was some energy in her apartment that, is it from her? Is she attracting something just by her virtue of who she is? And we did our little thing, and even my ghost hunter friend, I think she's like, I love her, but I think she's got a few cracks in the pot too. But the point is, Vlad, there was a couple of weird things, and I don't have a logical explanation. Plus, I didn't have the luxury of sticking around and let me try to debunk this 6 ways to Sunday. But we all witnessed a painting that started swinging on the wall by itself, and there was some interesting PK activity. And then we told her, well, here's what you need to do. If you feel there is an entity there, then sage your place and tell it to F off. Just take charge. But she can't do that. And then again, the incidents were ramping up, apparently. Her boyfriend claimed he was actually physically touched by this thing. So I got another more professional ghost hunter involved. And we had set up another time. Took a couple of months, to coordinate to get the other one to come. And then the woman who lives in the apartment canceled at the last minute. So, what is that? That tells me, okay, I don't know what your issue is, but you're certainly not serious about this, or you don't want it to be taken care of because maybe this is how you're getting attention, And you have to look at all that. What are the psychological factors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you guys go through something if people say, well, I'm a vampire and I want to become part of the vampire scene?
Well, I think that's sort of like the basis for the whole thing about, making people wait for a year. It's like your craziness probably should have, become apparent after a year.
Right. You should have seen this.
And if you can't, actually show up and follow rules and follow the structure by coming once a month to a location, your life is too screwed up anyway. So it's sort of like all of that is structured to weed people out that are going to have issues, either following rules or following a schedule, or any of their craziness should have popped up after a year.
Right. So there's a sort of level of one aspect or one level of conformity that recognize the rules and understand the hierarchy. I imagine there's a social hierarchy.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And it's sort of like, even when back in the earlier days, there was a societal greeting for if you met someone that was considered an elder, and you were not an elder, you would sort of approach them and you'd sort of you'd kiss the back of their hand and then kiss the back of your hand, and then sort of like a formal court greeting back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of gay, and that's kind of after a little while, because none of the new people that sort of felt that they were more worthy than they were, wanted to follow that code to, they felt it was elitism.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. So what did they expect coming into the society?
I guess society had changed along with the political climate, and they felt that, it's sort of the entitled me, the me attitude, and therefore I am here, so I should be acknowledged.
Yeah.
With the people that sort of got upset that they entered a race and didn't win and didn't get a trophy.
Yeah, right. Well, and they probably didn't train well enough for the race or weren't that practiced.
It's like there are winners and there are losers.
Right.
You didn't win, you don't win.
That's right.
You don't get a trophy anyway. I had an aunt that when it was other people's birthdays, sort of if it was her daughter's birthday, her other daughters would get presents along with her because she didn't want them to feel left out.
Oh, yeah. What was that line? That was that movie, The Incredibles, and there was a great line about what happened to our society. We just have to celebrate mediocrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good line in that movie.
Like, so it's like sort of like we've gotten away, we've gotten into this whole like everybody's, it's like if everybody's special, no one is special.
Right. Yeah, it reduces everything to pablum.
Yeah.
And so nothing will stand out. And that, a lot of societies, to be honest, they do that because it's an equalizing thing or a leveling thing. So they have minimized friction. I mean, hunter-gatherer groups do this, and
people sort of like the whole communism thing. They feel that, oh, look, on the face value, everybody is equal.
But they weren't.
Because like the people that were in charge of the KGB and the higher ups have much nicer houses than five people to an apartment.
Listen, I lived in the Soviet Union. I remember that. There was pretty blatant, when you'd see all the nice cars coming out of the Kremlin, and there's me and 20 other people waiting to get on a crowded tram.
Like, you don't remember seeing a couple of people, pictures of people waiting in line to get toilet paper.
No, a couple people, 20, 30. You'd be 40 below zero. You'd be standing out there. But, I have to say it was an interesting experience. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. And the fact that you would, so have those rules changed now? I mean, you're saying that vampire community is kind of broken up into all these different.
I mean, each area different. So I haven't seen what Texas is like. I haven't seen what there's a group in New Orleans. There's a bunch of them in New Orleans.
Yeah.
There's Texas. There's all these other places. In New York, it's sort of like from being one large community, it's sort of separated into three smaller communities.
Okay.
One of them has gone. Because back in the day, it was originally there was only supposed to be one court in each city. So back sort of in 2000, somewhere in there, or 1997 or something.
Yeah.
There was another group that came and said, we would like to, start this other court, and they came to the Elders Council, and they were like, we would like to start this, and, they posed their case and everything, and then people were going back and forth, and some of them were like, no, there shouldn't be another court, and I was like, well, what is your issue with there being another court?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, why do they feel a need for it? And I go, well, there you go. Ask them why they feel a need for another court.
Right.
And they said, well, basically, we want this to be an artisan salon thing, and we feel that the court that's there now is based more on the nightclub, sort of social thing, and you have a court thing, but it's more for politics. We want to have more of an artisan salon, and we actually want to do rituals, and you guys don't do rituals, and we want to have poetry readings, and we want to celebrate pagan festivals, and have dance things due to the pagan festivals, and make it more of an artisan court. And I go, well, there you go. That's their reason.
Right.
And so I sort of advocated for them, because I'm like, you know what, you have to listen. That's part of being an elder is you have to, you just don't sit there and go, nope. You have to well, what is your, listen to the case.
Right.
If you're going to make a judgment, listen to the case. Don't just bring your own issues into it and make a decision. You got to listen to what's happening. So I said, look, that's the way it is. I'm going to my vote is for, and I swung a couple people to the thing, and then they passed it through, and they've been doing it ever since.
Well, will they still convene or work with the court you are in?
They're sort of what they do is they consider you weren't supposed to, because it was sort of back to this feudal thing. You weren't supposed to be you couldn't hold political sort of office. I don't want to say office. You couldn't hold a title of courts, as they felt it was a conflict. So what they did was people like myself. They sort of came up with a title. We were like an ambassador.
I see. Well, so you were in the traditional court?
I was in the traditional one, and then I was an ambassador to the Court of Lazarus.
Oh, all right. Okay. What was your court called?
The original one was like the Sanguinarium originally, and then later on, it became the Society Nocturnus of Gotham.
Oh, Gotham. Ooh. And so when was that established, do you know?
Back in like 1994.
So it's recent history. It's nothing that had a tradition like from 1900.
No.
Okay.
I mean, there wasn't anything really sort of, back to those, because it mostly revolved around, it was an offshoot of the Gothic culture, which wasn't around until like, the 90s.
Yeah, that's true. The Goths started coming out.
And it was like sort of, they were, the Goths were considered like in the beginning, before the term in the club scene, there was Gothic, there was like, they were the darker punks.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say that was a part of the punk movement.
So it's like you went from the punks to the Goths to like the Goths and the vampires.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, all right. I'll poke around a little bit more on that too online. I'll try and find more of the history.
For like the club was called Mother, like in New York City. So look at that, you'll probably find
Mother
and stuff about like the Sanguinarium and all the other.
Okay.
For good or bad, you'll find all kinds of stuff, I'm sure, online. But
so what started as the Sanguinarium then kind of broke up into
ended
three.
Up like sort of because there were issues with some of the people like that were behind the scenes and people not liking so and so's, and so we like broached off and we were like, we're going to leave that heritage behind us, and now we are the Society Nocturnus of Gotham.
Okay. And then so you said they wound up being three different kinds of groups.
There's one that's sort of like more or less like, you might as well call it like sort of a private party, and I don't know, they went through a number of different names. But the two main ones are Society Nocturnus of Gotham, and the other one is Court of Lazarus.
Okay. And what about the one in Massachusetts? And was there anything like that there?
There was the group we tried to start, which sort of like has an online presence still, but not like really anything. There was, which they were trying to get together, like, and you could never get more than like, the most we ever got were like 10 people, 10.
Yeah.
To get together for that, and I don't even know if they're bothering anymore. It's just had to be like sort of, why. I mean, at that point in time, it was like sort of the one of the guys that was doing it with me was like paying for. He was doing the like. This is back in the days of like the meetup groups.
Yes. Well, that's how I found you. I found you on the meetup.
And he was like, "Why am I paying for this? Like, if nobody's like." Nobody's showing up to like kick in any money towards like paying for this meetup thing or anything else. So that's called the Vampiric Council of New England.
Okay, so that's what that was.
Yeah.
Because
that's just sort of, I mean, now it's basically broken down to being, I haven't heard of them doing anything, but it's sort of,
yeah,
like just posting stuff on Facebook right as of now. Like, I haven't really seen them do anything. So.
Yeah, I was 2008. I think is when we found you through Meetup, but I had talked to some other, I guess, people identified as vampires, but they.
I mean, it was like Dimitri was like one of the ones that, sort of like started it with me. And then, I mean, we got a bunch of people. There were some like real weird ones that were out towards like, where the hell was he? Towards the middle of the state. Like
Springfield area or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He showed up to a couple of the things, and then he got really bent because we sort of shut him down. Because he was sort of like, had this weird, like, we should do this, and we could have uniforms, and,
oh, no.
and, put the people in their place, and sort of like, like they can come there. And, he wanted to do this weird, like, sort of
militaristic,
like, bondage thing, like sort of like they can be our slaves, and I'm like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, he had two people that followed him around, and I was like, I don't know where your head is at. Like, this is not like the right place of that. And then he was like, he just had a bigger image of himself than it was like. I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time, so you're not talking to somebody that did it yesterday.
Right.
And I have been longer than you have existed. So
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because, again, when I was working on that project with about the BDSM community, I never really encountered. May have encountered a couple people who were kind of. I can't say they even identified as goth. I never found anybody who identified as vampiric. They were pretty middle class and upper middle class, tax paying. Whatever. They in their public lives, they're pretty damn conservative, and not that expressive, not even artistically. I mean, hell, man,
like the blood fetishism, you'd never know we're goth because they're not.
Right. And so I don't know if I ran into that, but we ran into other kinds of fetishists and been to a couple of dungeons and pony people, things like that, furries. But no, I never. I don't think I ever encountered anyone in that who practiced any of that, BDSM stuff, who would go into, I don't know how to put it, the dark,
Yeah.
Gothic, moody. I really didn't run into that.
Yeah. I think probably, I mean, it seems to be more prevalent in, not like in middle America.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be more prevalent. Like there's a huge thing out in LA.
Yeah.
There's a huge thing in New York. There's a huge thing in New Orleans. There's a huge thing out towards Dallas. So it seems to be, if there is a large city, that's where and that's why the one friend of mine that did the vampire ball here, she goes, "Oh, you don't realize how many vampires are lurking in Raleigh." And I go, because I couldn't give you a phone number of somebody I know in Raleigh.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't know that there's anything in Raleigh because I don't go there.
Well, we had and I only found this out. I don't even remember how I found it out, but we have a little podunk plowfuck. I'm just going to say plowfuck town of Rumford, Maine, way out there. And apparently, in 2008 and all that, they had a group of people who claimed to be vampires. And maybe it was through one of my students who, I think I tried to put him in touch with you because he claimed that that's what he identified as. And this was, God knows, back in 2010 or something like that. And then I felt, he was a nice young man, and he was in my anthropology class, and he opened, when I told him your story, he came to me and opened up about it, and I think that's where I learned that there were some that were from this little town, and they had to keep it very hidden because nobody liked that they were identifying as this.
Yeah.
And here he was going to school out here, and I don't know whatever happened to him. I tried to keep in touch, but he had a lot of confusion about a lot of things. Being I think he was also dealing with transgender identity issues. There were lots of things going on with this person. But the vampire thing really, really struck him. I mean, so I thought, well, because you told me it's just something right? You identify as. So I tried my best to put him in touch with whoever to respect that. But if he didn't follow through, and if these people don't follow through, then there's nothing you can do.
No, so because it's sort of it's you don't want to lead people
Yeah.
to that, because if it's not their it's not their calling or whatever. I mean, it's sort of I sort of feel the same way now, with and I know I will be hung by the political leftists, but I'm not okay with these people that are oh, I'm going to have my 5-year-old get a sex change because he likes dress.
Yeah, I know.
Therefore, I know he's been a girl all along.
Yeah.
It's no, I kind of it's nobody's actually come out and said it, but I sort of get the feeling, I'm eventually we're going to feel all of these people that are doing this are suffering from the Munchausen thing.
Oh yeah, Munchausen by proxy kind of thing.
This is just a new I'm going to alter my child's sex because I need attention, and
Yeah.
But, heaven forbid we say that now because you'd be like,
Oh no, it's like ooh. Well, I think I'm pretty vocal about that kind of thing. But my thing is if it's an adult and a young adult and young adults, we all go through our times of being lost. It's just,
sure.
well, check it out. Talk to somebody. Here's someone you can talk to.
Yeah.
And get informed.
Like if somebody has any questions, I try and be as open as possible and answer.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I don't have it, and I'm not like, I'm not going to claim like other people that like I have all the answers. And if I don't have the answer, then it's a question that doesn't need answering. And I'm like,
right.
That doesn't work for everybody.
No, and like I say, I ran into this student, and I've even other students. I said, well, hey, you want to do a report on this? Well, here's a source.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you're a source. It's like I'm a source for a lot of them. You don't know how many, not just them. How many? I know last couple of years, not recently, but how many damn radio show, I guess you want to call them X radio, XM radio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was on shows out of Canada and I'm no authority on anything, but because I explore this stuff and, I'm trying to learn about what makes people believe and feel what they, I'm trying to understand how do people identify and how are they perceiving their reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's what anthropology is about.
Sure.
We just, what makes people, fly that way, even if you can't turn it into a bat, what makes people...
I'm like probably viewing it through a different filter than some of the other people because being a magician, like it's all about like creating your own reality. It's like
sure,
it is my reality because I have created it.
Yes,
like our persona is like Houdini, like whatever we choose to tell people.
I'm telling you. I mean, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Yeah,
and it really takes a lot of chutzpah to do that because I can imagine the flack you and others get. Like, well, what's wrong with you? Well, you're crazy to believe that kind of stuff. I mean, why? It's because of people who have these visions that reality changes.
I mean, one of my friends keeps teasing me, and Vince, he keeps going, I don't know, with like the pictures you've taken recently, he goes, I'm sort of seeing more of like, he goes, instead of like the old school like vampire, he goes, you're sort of like looking recently a little more like Satan himself.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're looking more satanic. A little Timothy McVeigh in there.
He goes, you look a little like, I'm like, you mean like the old school? Like, he goes, well, no, maybe not Satan, but like definitely like an upper class demon. I go, well, you might as well go for the top then.
I like that upper class demon. That's pretty good, but yeah, and the fact, the whole idea that you're a magician and you are all about using illusion. I know to entertain, but to educate.
Well, it's to give people like sort of I want to leave them with a moment and an experience. I don't want to just do something where it's trivial. It's, because to me, especially with the way everybody's lives are so hectic, it's like if you're going to spend time and your money and like clear your schedule to go see my show, it should be something above and beyond something you can sit and watch on YouTube.
Right. I mean, I agree. And are you finding that being down there, you're getting more opportunities to perform?
I've just like sort of created my own opportunity.
Good.
And that's the problem. It's like sort of none of them were coming my way.
Yeah.
So I created the East Coast Spirit Sessions down in Myrtle Beach, which is the Bizarre Magic Convention.
Yeah.
Down there. And then through that, I ended up like, meeting several other magicians, and then like Vince had been coming to that, and then he's like, well, I want to do this offshoot, and then he's like, but I don't want to do it the same thing. So I worked with him on how to make the other convention different.
Yeah.
Because like, why create competition for yourself?
Right.
So I was like, how do we make it different? And then I was like, well, everybody talks about these haunted places. Let's bring people to haunted places and do a Bizarre Magic Convention. So the first one we did was in Gettysburg.
Yeah, neat. Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Like, if they've talked about Gettysburg, if they want to do routines about Gettysburg, let's bring them there and let them feel what Gettysburg is like. Because we had a couple of people come in from England, and they're like, we don't understand what the big thing is about.
Right.
Heard the term, we don't understand why it's a big thing. I go, I'm sure it's probably the same as like when we talk about the Magna Carta.
Right. Like, what the hell? Who even knows what that? Really, if you bring that up to an American, they're gonna go, the Magna what?
So we drove them through the battlefields, and we brought them in the middle of the night, like right to the middle of the battlefield, and let them see the battlefield, overlooking it, like fog shrouded. And then I go, now you can imagine like marching across this field as I point over there, and you can see the drop of the valley. Can you imagine like soldiers waiting for you on the other side as you approach the hill and having them shoot down upon you, looking down at the hill that's below you? And they went, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Bingo.
Yeah, that's a powerful place,
You know, we just got it there.
So,
like, we know this place is kind of really haunted. And I go, well,
so
like 50,000 people died here. Yeah,
right.
I think.
So Vince, that's what Vince, and I know Vince and I we friended and stuff, and I need to talk to him too. So he plays on the haunted thing.
He likes it. He had been a ghost hunter. Now he does a lot of like murder mystery things with like magic.
Yeah.
His thing is, why do you want to go to a murder mystery and be told you're wrong?
Ah.
So he's like, I sort of used murder mysteries with magic, because he's like, this way the audience knows that, they solved the thing, and they had input on it, and they realized who the murderer was. So he does magic with murder mysteries and stuff like that. So
that's really cool.
He does that, and then he does like ghost hunts, and he does a ghost tour in Baltimore where he talks about like Edgar Allan Poe and all the other good stuff and everything. So
now, where's he based out of? Is he based down there?
Delaware. So
he's in Delaware. Okay.
Yeah, so he has a short. What I usually do is like when I'm going to Baltimore, I usually go to his house and then ride over to Baltimore, because I'm like, I don't really want to deal with learning Baltimore.
Yeah, no, you don't. Oh, let me tell you.
I'm like, I will sit in the car and like, being you were like born over in this area, you can find the stuff for us. Right.
Yeah, I'm like you. I've had enough of my ordeals in Baltimore. Believe me.
No, he's done like he's like, I guess he considers himself a hypnotherapist, but he's murder mysteries. He's done the ghost hunting. He's done ghost tours, and he does like haunted magic like myself.
Okay. That's good.
He calls himself a paranormalist.
Well, yeah, sure.
So.
Paranormalist, yeah. Do you know that there's a whole new field of parasociology? I just read about that recently. Wow. I'm going to have to look into that field. But yeah, paranormalist, sure. And that's the thing, there are so many types and levels to this. And the beliefs, they're as old as time. All societies have some form of these things, and then how we're trying to look at them in a modern context, modern technology. So I definitely will reach out to Vince too maybe over the weekend.
Like that you're a friend of mine, and just so he knows like who you are.
Well, no, I think we mentioned that, and I think he and I connected on Facebook already.
Okay. I just sort of like wanted to give you a background, so you just didn't. Yeah. I was sort of like, he goes, he never answered me because he didn't know who I was.
Right. No, I'll say, hey, Vlad says. He nudged me your way. Yeah. And actually, there's another student of mine I have right now who is, he's learning to be a magician, young guy.
Okay.
And again, he has complained about the dearth of a community, up in the hinterlands of Maine, and I know you're not in Mass anymore, but I think I tried to put him in touch with Sean, because I really don't know anybody down there anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I asked him to, why don't you do a sociology report on the magician community, even if it's a limited community here. And then why is that? And then, so I'm trying to work with this kid, just for this, this class, so he can get something done.
That's sort of our, structure of, looking at, looking at it through a magnifying glass of us examining the magic world for mystery school was, what is the general people, what are people's perceptions of the magic community?
Yeah.
How do you perceive yourself? And is it a realistic, because some of the old school guys from the Magic Club really think they still look like David Copperfield wearing a powder blue tuxedo.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you're not. You're not like David Copperfield.
Right.
And looking at that and looking at questions like, how does your audience respond to you? Is there a reason why they respond to you a certain way? Like, why aren't women in general not interested in magic?
That was a big question I had. Why aren't there more women in doing that instead of being the assistant?
I didn't really like the answer when I explained it to them. But
what was that? I want to hear it.
The answer is that, like, most, aside from me, because I came into magic through the side door.
Yeah.
Most males get involved in magic at an earlier age and use it as a coping mechanism to have a cool skill that makes them cooler than their friends because they can do something that they can't.
Yeah.
It's a show-off skill, and women don't do that in crowds.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like in their little female society, they have a different way of interacting to be like one up on someone else. It's sort of like, do you have cooler shoes than someone, or do you have like a name brand?
Yeah, $5,000 Coach bag.
Yeah, so it's like stuff like that. But guys use, I am better at sports, or I have a cooler car, or I can do this and you can't.
Yeah.
So it gives them a one-upmanship to be cooler in the social crowd than other ones. And women don't really use that. It's not a tool that's applicable to them. They're just not attracted to it because it's like they don't I don't care if I'm cooler than someone else.
Well, do you think and just thoughts on this? Have you seen more women getting into the magic performance?
More magic, yes.
Okay, because I wonder too. It's been a very guarded, very male dominant kind of human activity.
Because they're still running into the crap in the general magic community.
Yeah.
They're still running into, even ones that I know that have been magicians for 10 or 15 years, run into walking into a magic convention and carrying their stuff in, and one of the old guys goes, "So is a magician behind you?"
Yeah, exactly. They're an assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the support role. Because I know this young man, I asked him, I said, well, whatever is up here in Portland, Maine area. I'm not even living in Portland anymore. I'm out of town, and I'm living in a poltergeist house. It just did a weird thing earlier today, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, make my day. I don't care. I found out there is a Native American burial ground in the woods down here. There's lots of funky stuff going on in this house. But I don't let it. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. It's like, nope. I've been there, done that. But and I don't have an explanation of why some of this stuff is manifesting. I try to figure it out. But yeah, the fact is, I'm not really in Portland anymore. I teach down there and stuff. But yeah, he was telling me there's just a really small community of magicians, and there are no females, none. And I don't really know. I don't know about elsewhere like Boston. I don't know. But I told him, you might, do a little research on that and try to find out, like what you just told me, Vlad.
They're not really that attracted, in the area, because I was president, for a number of years that I was there as, the president for the Boston Magic, the Society of American Magicians. And there were one woman belonged to it.
Yeah.
No, it was sort of 25 guys and one woman.
Yeah, and
she was not even exclusively a magician. She did clowning and balloons and stuff like that along with it. But bizarre magic, sort of they seem attracted by the ability to not have to be in a category of magic like regular magic, where you can do whatever the hell you want to be because you're writing your own backstory. And they like the aspect of the storytelling. And bizarre magicians are generally more welcoming. They're like, we don't care. If you're into this, that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, the bizarre Bizarre magicians. So what?
Sort of like this whole, like, we do seances, we do, like...
Okay, like the old spiritualists.
Yeah.
Because they were...
Also theatrical ones, too.
Right.
It's sort of like, we're doing a Titanic seance, and,
Yeah.
weird stuff happens. We're doing the Jack the Ripper seance.
So it's still...
We do seances, we do, like, spook shows, we do all of bizarre... I just didn't like the term bizarre magic for myself, so that's why I tweaked it, and I call mine Gothic magic.
Yeah. But, it's like the old spiritualists. When you go back to the Fox sisters and all that, and who was the woman from Boston, Marjorie, these were female prestidigitators.
Yep.
They were producing all kinds of effects that were very convincing, and even Harry Houdini made it his mission to debunk them.
And one of my friends does a thing now. She's calling it, like, the modern Georgia Wonder.
Oh, neat.
She's doing the Georgia Wonder thing, where it's like, sapping the strength from men, and they can't lift her.
Yeah.
So the old school, like, sort of sideshow thing.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's like women are involved in that, and a lot more women. I'm seeing a lot more women getting involved in sideshow stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
Just because it's empowering. They just want to do the stuff that they want to do, and they don't really want somebody to tell them what to do. So
right, they don't want to follow the regimented.
No, they want to blaze their own trail rather than going.
Right.
No, you're going to do this, so like you're a manipulator or you're a card person. It's like, I don't know. I guess they just don't find it like that intriguing. So this like offers more of opportunities of. You can be a gypsy or a reincarnated countess or whatever you want to be, as long as you have your own personal bio story written.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really interesting.
It's more theatrically fulfilling because it's like you can write your own script and that's it. Rather than hi, I'm so and so, because it's like the tendency for regular magicians, most of them. Is and this is the law. There are a lot of exceptions, but traditionally it's this whole build up this illusion and go, wasn't that fun? I fooled you.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's what gets the shits and giggles, And you're right. People remember this stuff.
And they want it to be. They want to look for real magic. They don't. Do they believe you're a mind reader? No. They don't want you to laugh at them because they fell for it.
Yeah.
They want to leave the moment and go, wow, you know what? I don't know how he did that, but it was damn cool.
Right. And then maybe get a little souvenir out of it, too.
And that's the way I want to leave people with the thing that it's like, if they experienced it, I don't want them to feel that every show I do is the same.
Right.
I want them to feel that, like, if they saw my show, it wouldn't have been the same without them being there.
That's really nice. Well, that's how it felt. I remember when we came down and saw you guys, and then we filmed you down in Salem. I mean, that's how it felt for me.
Yeah.
And it was very memorable. And then there was the other show that we went down. One of the last shows you did with, when you were still with Daniel and Sean. But that's how it felt to me. It was. I think, and the audiences usually, you could feel they were enjoying it tremendously.
I mean, we did, like, because Danny and I were doing shows. We were doing shows like the last year or the last year. We were doing shows on the hour.
Yeah.
And it was a 40-minute show. So we would do 40 minutes, and then we would reset our stuff, and then go back out and sell tickets.
Yeah. Yep. Down there in Salem, right?
Every hour doing a show.
Yep.
And one time we had a couple, like, I think they had a 10-year-old kid or something. They were getting ready to catch the bus, and they came to us at like 10 o'clock in the morning when they're like, okay, we want to see a show. We sold them tickets, and we're like, hoping that more people were going to show up. Nobody else showed up, and then we were like, you know what? If you still have time, go get a cup of coffee, and let's hope that more people show up for the next show, and it'll be a little more entertaining for you if there's more people there. 3. So it was just one of those days in Salem where, nobody else, that early in the morning showed up.
Right.
So they came back, and they're like, so did you just want to give us our money back? And we're like, Danny and I are willing to do this. This is when it was just Danny and I, no Sean, because Sean went and
Right.
doing a 9 to 5.
Right.
So I said, Danny, are you willing? He goes, I'm willing to do the show. And I go, it's up to you people.
Right.
If you'd like to see the show, we will do the show for you 3.
Yeah.
And they went, well, I go, but you just have to, I go, hold on for a second. You just have to be okay. If you say yes, like, you can't just sit there. Being that there are only 3 of you,
Yeah.
you are the selected volunteer.
You're going to be a part of it.
And then they went, okay. And then they were like, afterwards, they were like, wow, we didn't believe you guys did the show just for us 3. And
Yeah.
it was like a private show. And I go, you know what? Your money is the same, like, denomination as everybody else's. So
Right.
are you, like, wanting to see us? We're not going to tell you, like, no.
Right. That's really beautiful. And that's really great that you did that.
Because you want to be like, I don't want to be the, like, have them be like, oh, we went to go see these assholes and they wouldn't do a show for us.
Right.
There wasn't enough people.
Of course not.
No, I'd rather be like, no, they did a private show for us.
Oh, no, and you know darn well they went back where they were from and talked about that.
Yeah.
It was absolutely.
Leave them with that moment rather than like,
No, absolutely. Rather than have flat out disappointment, and if they could, participate, be included, and that's another special.
But I can't tell you how many magicians I've told that story to, and they went, you did a show for 3 people? And I go, yeah. And they go, I wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah, well, that's true with a lot of performing art.
Is the show about them or is it about you?
Yeah. Right. Well, it's like I do workshops and for creative writing, and I'm telling you, sometimes I have one person, and I'll still do it. And guess what? I say, you got a private lesson here. I can sit and we can sit and work on you and your work, and I don't cancel just because I had one person. So, that's really, it's the way I feel about it. And if
I try and tell them, I go, you know what? It could have been the day where you didn't get anybody.
Well, true.
At least you got 3 people.
Got 3 people. You could have had no one, yeah.
You could have drove all the way to Salem, got there, and everybody walked right by you. And
oh, yeah.
You don't even make money for lunch.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It can be tough down there, I know.
Yeah.
But,
which I hear is, like, a lot worse now. I'm not hearing anything but, like...
So yeah, a year ago, I did go down. My cousin came to visit, and we went down to see Sean. And I videoed it, too. I have to admit, the lighting was crap, and I was dealing with a lot. But it was, really, there wasn't a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It was October. I mean, it wasn't a Halloween. It was about 2 weeks before Halloween. But, we went to the show, and again, there were, I don't know how many people he had. Maybe he had 6 or 7 in there.
Yeah.
Not a lot. But it was that way pretty much all around the town. It wasn't nothing.
But they're saying, they're like, they're making, like, the rules and regulations, like,
yeah, I think
more of a pain in the neck and all kinds of crap, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And one of the guys that I know, like, Josh, that does, like, the caricatures down there, he goes, I've been, like, refused, like, a permit, and then they sort of, like, make me jump through hoops to try and get it, and then I'm like, really?
Well, it's money. And I think you were the one who told me a few years they were trying to get away from the witchcraft thing. They were trying to move to the maritime history theme.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to say. They were like, nobody comes here. I'm like, if you do a web search, like, that's like 3,000 things down whaling. I go, everything else is witches or Halloween.
Right. I
go, as much as Chicago tried that, they're still going to be tied to gangsters.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. I mean,
it's just because the garage is not there doesn't mean people don't know about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
No, but I think the original wall is there, and there's still bullet holes in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at it with a lot of towns, and everybody thinks of Salem, Mass. They're not thinking maritime industry. They're not even thinking House of Seven Gables, Nathaniel Hawthorne, I mean, even though it's there.
I mean, as much as New York City has cleaned up, like, 42nd Street, when you say 42nd Street, it's a different imagery than, like, Disney.
I can't even stomach what happened in New York. Oh, like I went to see Joker last night, and that's supposed to be, Gotham City, but set in the 70s.
Hmm.
But I mean, you could see where they were trying to capture what New York looked like back then, and there were some things they avoided filming because you couldn't get that anymore.
Yeah.
But I have to say they did a pretty good job because I remember because I grew up in Jersey. You know what I mean?
Well, 42nd Street, and it's like I'm like having been one of the ones that like walked around in that area, like
Yes.
major and stuff. I'm like, you have to realize, like, because they were like, oh, it was all. I'm like, yeah, there was a lot of porn and a lot of like.
It was the most entertaining.
Like, go girl.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but you have to realize, in that same section, that was one of the areas was the only place at that time that you could see like some of the like real low class horror films.
Oh, I know that.
Because those like slasher films and stuff weren't getting any play at the major theaters. So if you wanted
see them there.
Like Driller Killer, that's where you went to go see it.
Well, not just that. I just remember, taking trips into the city, and you just stand on a corner. You didn't have to pay a damn dime. You'd be totally entertained.
Yeah.
You saw everything.
Yep.
I mean, holy cow. I mean, from music to dominatrixes and leopard skin and whips. And I'm not joking. I would just stand on a corner for an hour or so, and I'd see all kinds of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And the music was amazing. Some of the people who would play, and who was a character they used to have a play down there, Moondog. He was kind of like a street musician, and he, eventually got a recording deal. But I remember seeing him playing his bongos, and I mean, I don't know what happened. What was it, in the 90s or 2000 when Disney kind of took over?
Yep.
Yeah, it was awful.
I had to clean it all up, and it's like
they ruined it.
Yep.
Ruined it because there was so much character in the old Times Square area. And you're right, that's where you went to see all the interesting movies.
Well, it was like the ones that couldn't get when it was that, and then that's why you ended up seeing like the one of the dead at the drive-in.
Yes, exactly. That's all the other options were.
Romero wouldn't bow to the ratings board, and he wasn't going to edit it.
Yeah.
So they ended up trying to throw an X on it.
Yep.
They were like, well, and then they pulled the X off, and then they put it as NR. It was no rating, and a lot of the movie theaters were like, if there's no rating, we're not carrying it.
Well, yeah, but so Clockwork Orange was released that way too. Yep. I saw that. I saw those both in drive-ins.
It was either drive-ins or once in a while you'd see either one of them at it was if it was a small family-owned theater that didn't really care about the corporation.
Right.
You'd see it as a midnight movie.
Right. Right.
They did the same thing for Woodstock and all of the other ones that were considered counterculture.
Yeah.
Have them as midnight movies.
Right. They didn't have them as major release distribution.
No.
And so these people would have to go, like Romero, he had to go with prints of the film, he and his team, and they'd be driving up and down, driving all over the country to bring those reels in to a theater. Will you play this?
Yeah.
And I do remember when it came to rural Minnesota, because we had moved out there. That was a nightmare and a half. And I'm like, oh my God, there it is. And my mother was like, you will not go see that, but I did anyway.
Yeah.
But I did remember seeing Night of the Living Dead being put up on little posters on telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was being advertised.
Yeah. And they were you'd hear the people that were involved in it, Steiner and all the people talking about how, to try and make ends meet, kept, selling off, little pieces of the film.
Yes.
Try and make things, and they're the way it's sort of grown into an entity of its own, they would have kept, all of the percentages that they had. Right. All of them would have been, billions.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even the Woodstock guys, in the Woodstock movie, they went all belly up. They went totally bankrupt. They were sued.
Yeah.
They lost everything. But, look at what they achieved. I mean, it's like, holy crap.
I think it's the same way with, because you had all these bands in there that were like, oh, well, we want our royalties because we're in the film. And it's the same crap that, Hard Rock ran into when they tried to do the theme park down in Myrtle Beach.
Yes, I remember that.
Going to have like the Moody Blues ride and the Rolling Stones like coaster and the Led Zeppelin experience, and you're like, you know how much money these people are going to want, like for you to use their music and their name constantly.
Oh yeah, even like Pink Floyd, that they're really about money.
Yeah,
very much. Zeppelin, all that. They're so much about proprietary.
But it was like, I'm like, and this is a limited it's a limited thing. Like you're sort of like building a theme park that is supposed to have like thousands of people go through a day. Like, how many people in Myrtle Beach do you really think want to go through and like have a ride based on the Moody Blues?
Yeah, who even knows who they are anymore?
And I'm like, sort of like, because I saw like video footage of the ride, and it was like you'd walk through and they'd have all these like psychedelic colors, like you were on a trip and everything. I'm like, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, well, they're probably on acid.
But I'm like, do you think that most of the people that live in Myrtle Beach are doing?
Well, if they offered the LSD to go with the ride, yeah, they probably would do it. But yeah, I don't know where people, they would come up with all kinds of ideas and notions, and you're right, you get into proprietary issues, and I don't know, but anyway, Vlad, I mean, we've been talking for over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And
if you have any other questions, like call, let me know, like next time, and we can continue.
Yeah, well, I love talking to you. I miss talking to you. I just, you moved away, and I've been struggling because after my studio collapsed and all that, it's not been very pleasant, and I'm in exile right now, living in this spooky house. You should see this house. Holy cow! But yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and and like I said, you went down there, but I've been following you on Facebook, and I will continue to do
more
so.
opportunities. So I'm trying to do stuff, but it was like you said, it was like sort of like I've had to like instead of because I don't do the route that other generic magicians do,
right?
Where it's like you're waiting for bar mitzvahs, or birthdays, or graduation parties, or school shows. So I have to create like venues, like I did the stuff up in Baltimore for the Edgar Allan Poe Festival.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of stuff at the Lord Baltimore. We created like the one magic convention, and then we just created another one. So that's like sort of every 6 months there's a convention. So it's
No, that's really cool because like I said, even up here. We have one ghost hunter guy. He's becoming a little bit famous, and he managed to pull off a Paracon up here. I found out about it by accident, and I went at the last minute. It's like, oh my God, they're doing this, because they're really, usually you have to go to Boston or Worcester or something. Yeah. But he's been trying to bring more of it, up here in the Portland area, and then we got the cryptozoology thing, but again, it's because these people are manifesting this.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're your manifest destiny. You're figuring it out, and I think that's really wonderful, because when you do sit and wait, it's waiting for freaking Godot, right?
Yeah, and it's like sort of like you end up like having to bow to somebody else's like vision of what you do. So this way, it's like, what, we create the thing. I mean, it's like I ended up because of it was sort of Lord Baltimore is a little bit of a an upper scale hotel.
Yes.
So for some reason, even though it was on all my publicity and it's on the poster and it was on the flyer that was downstairs, I was doing the last show during October. Like one of the wedding people that like sells the wedding things to the customers that come into the hotels. I guess she had a bridal group, and she sort of somehow decided that they would like to see my magic show. And didn't explain to them what kind of a magic show it is. So, at the end, like one of them is like, so when are you going to do the rabbits and the hats?
Oh, God.
Like, I don't do them. And I go, I addressed that point at the beginning of my show. And she's like, well, that's magic, not this stuff. And I go, for you, possibly.
Yeah.
The rest of us feel that's better left for children's shows.
Yeah, wow. Well, yeah, clown acts. The what do you call it? The balloon sculptures stuff. Yeah, if you want to call it that. Well, that's yeah, and that, and you're gracious in how you deal with that. I probably would have gone Jersey on their ass,
And
but
it was just sort of like was one of those,
yeah,
but it's like I sort of I'm old school a little bit in some of my stuff, and it's like sort of like I know my audience is. Vince is a little more like liberal, like wants to play the PC
yeah,
thing sometimes, and it's like I have one of my routines is like the name of the routine from where I got it from in England
yeah.
is called Whiteface,
Mm.
and that's exactly he goes, oh well, because he's like
It's not
do the
PC.
routine, and it's like you don't tell people. I mean, none of us tell people the names of routines.
Hmm.
Like, when we're doing them, we don't go, I'm going to present this. You just do the routine.
Right.
And the only way you'd know it's white-faced is it's basically about a killer clown.
Yeah.
And it's like about these murders, and left on the sort of confessional letter, it's signed whiteface.
Mm.
Because in theatrical terms, that's like the name for someone that wears clown makeup. It's
Right.
whiteface.
Right.
But to Vince, that was PC. You probably don't want to say that. And I go, why? It fits in, like, with the
A historical context.
Yeah, I go,
Yeah.
and it's part of like the thing. He goes, well, you could easily change that. I go, what do you mean? Why would I want to? And he goes,
Right.
well, it could offend some people. And he goes, like 80% of your group in the one show in Baltimore was black, and they sort of giggled when you said that. I go, okay. I go, well, Vince, I'm gonna shatter part of your dreams right here.
Yeah.
I'm not working for like the Democratic National Convention with most of
Right.
the shows. I go, and Vince, in like the 30 years that I've been doing shows,
Right.
that's the only show that I've ever done that was like that percentage of black people in a room.
Right. Right.
So I'm not going to change my entire routine
Yeah.
based on one circumstance.
Right.
And I go, I can guarantee you, if you ask them, were they insulted by the term whiteface? No.
Nah.
I go, you're more, and then he goes, because he sort of got on me one time when he heard like my ringtone from one of my friends, because it's sort of like the redneck ringtone.
Oh yeah.
Sort of like this, like, answer the phone. I'm calling you on the phone. Pick the phone up. Like somebody called, and he goes, I wouldn't have that on my phone. People look at you when you have that, and I wouldn't have it. I go, you know what? If my phone is in the other room, I know who's calling.
Right. You know who it's set for.
But that's low class. Like, people might be insulted by it. I go, I don't really care if people are insulted. I don't live my life for other people. I live my life,
Yeah.
I think, easier for myself.
Right.
Not like to make other people happy. I go, if they're buying a ticket to my show, then I want to make them happy.
Right.
Otherwise, on the street, I could.
Could care less. No, but I like that about you. You're able to. You're your own person.
I try.
In spite of
you
what.
Get one go round, so it's like
That's true.
Enjoy yourself while you're
Yeah.
here. Then.
Yeah, no, I admire you for that. So, all right, I'm gonna let you go and let Vince know. Yeah, I'll reach out to him on Facebook, and I'll try and schedule a time and chat with him too, and I'll see what I can pull. I mean, I'm hoping I'm gonna be able to pull this together as far as writing it, because I'm.
If you have more questions, send me off an email.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Clarified of like what you actually.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, like I tried to,
Yeah.
like an answer to the question,
Yeah.
like why people think they're vampires, but that's like an individual thing. Like, why do you?
Right. Well, like I remember you said in our class that why don't you ask me why I identify as an Irish American or something?
Yeah, and it's I mean I dated two girls that both considered themselves bisexual.
Right.
One of them, when I quizzed her about it, I go, so have you ever been with a woman? She goes, no. She goes, I'm not really attracted to women. I go,
Then you're not bisexual. I know.
She goes, I'm sort of disgusted by like female genitalia. I'm like, then you're definitely not bisexual.
Right,
I go,
exactly.
do you understand what bisexual is?
Yeah.
But she was going to college and everything, and I said, you just like that because it helps you blend into your
Yeah.
group, your peer group.
Right.
As you can say, you're bisexual.
Right.
She goes, well, I don't want to shut off the possibility that sometime in the future I wouldn't be attracted to somebody.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting commentary, though. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, okay. That's what I would say.
And then the other one was sort of like, I consider myself bisexual. And then she goes, well, are you going to let me sleep with women? I go, do I get to sleep with them too? She goes, no. And I go, then that's cheating.
There you go.
And she goes, well, no, it's not, because they're women. I go,
oh, yeah?
I go, it's emotional, like, sort of
Sure.
cheating, because
Yeah.
if you're sleeping with someone else outside of the relationship,
Yeah.
then, like, you should offer me the same opportunity. Otherwise, like, you should just be happy with me.
There you go.
And she
Yeah.
goes, well, no, because I'm bisexual. And I go, no, it's not a buffet. You don't get to just sleep.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because, you really don't hear a lot of people who, particularly females, I don't know, you just don't hear a lot about that identity.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it. And I know it, like here in the LGBT community, and males I know, I'm not too many females, but males I know who identify as bisexual, they can't admit it that they are because the LGBT community will say you can't be, you've got to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And there is very low tolerance for bisexual identity. And in my world travels, I'd say there's a very healthy percentage of humans who truly are bisexual, but it never gets discussed. There's very little known about bisexual behavior. And like you said, look at a girl who didn't even know what it really meant.
Yeah, and it's like they try and tell me, well, due to the one
Right.
that didn't like females, she goes, well, my professor in school says everybody is bisexual. And I go,
No. No, we know that, but
on the scale, you have to be at least partially. And I go, no, I don't. And
Yeah.
she goes, well, that's what my teacher said. I go, well, I'm telling you, your teacher is wrong.
yeah, absolutely.
I said, and you know why? I said, I can prove to you right now that I am not at all.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, how are you going to prove it to me? I go, I am not attracted to my own genitalia.
Yeah.
Therefore, I do not know. I said, there is no point in time where someone is going to be better than mine.
There you go. And
So if I'm not attracted to my own,
yeah, very much so.
it's not going to be better.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's been that. Yeah, I know. I've been in the same. I've had people suggest that I'm a certain way, and I'm like, oh, you have no. I'm sorry. I've only swung in one tree, and that's the only tree that I go with. I see the other trees, and I see other people swinging in them. I do not want to go into those trees. Yeah, you're right. You don't have the inclination, you don't.
No, and it's like, I have no problem with other people if that's their life.
No, me too. I'm the same. It's like, if that's what you like, fine. Like I say, I've spent quite a bit of time just as part of, what I do too as an anthropologist. It's getting to know what people in all aspects of their lives,
Sean is like confused as hell about like being that Danny over the last few years has really sort of pushed the poly agenda.
Yes, I've noticed that. He doesn't get the polyamory. Yeah.
So Sean has, and he's like, I don't understand it. What does that mean? Like, why does he feel that that's important to tell people? I go, because it's part of who he is, and he's come to a point in his life that, well, he might chase people away from his shows. I go, he's come to a point in his life where he feels that it's more important to keep who he is out front than it is, like, he doesn't want to work for people that might be an issue.
I don't really don't think that it's going to affect his show, particularly, when he's got a particular kind of target audience with the Ren fairs and all that.
Those people are like okay with it.
They're absolutely okay with it. And again, it's another.
Yeah, I go, you're looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, he's in those environs and then working with that community, which may be part of the reason why he's why he's embracing it.
Yeah.
He's finding it works for him and he likes it, but it's because he's been exposed to it.
Yeah.
Where he performs in the nature of the his cultural magic, let's put it that way, the bardic magic. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me at all that's what he's embracing. And then maybe that's his way of blending in with the community that he works with.
Yeah.
And he's going to have it's a niche market. He's going to have his audience. Just like you're going to have yours, Vlad. You always have. But, you know, the people who look for the rabbits out of the hats, you know, all right, I'm glad they came to see the show, but you know darn well that's not who you're targeting.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I'm not going to change my stuff to suit it.
No, absolutely not.
My market.
Absolutely not. And you shouldn't. I mean, I thought your stuff was so fascinating, and I still got that old Strange Attractors. That's still up on YouTube somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
And I still tell people, take a look at this. You know, I mean, granted, it's 10 years ago, 11 years ago, but, you know, it's still really interesting stuff. And I miss doing that, going around and doing that stuff. I really do. Wish I could get back to that, but who knows? Maybe one day.
Yeah, you know, it's like as long as you know, it's like sort of like you're still forging ahead doing the stuff, and that's the only way people like find out about you. You know, it's like by constantly reinventing yourself or finding new things.
Exactly. Okay, you know, I'm going to throw it against the wall to see what sticks again.
Yep.
You know, and I'm still putting it out there. It's just I don't, you know, necessarily have the resources I used to have, and you know, luxury of a lot of other things, but you know, I got a couple of I got my feelers out there, and I'm networking in my feeble little way. But the point is, like I say, I'm really happy. I'm still in touch with you, and I'm working on some other projects, and I'm trying, maybe this little magazine might, you know, get somewhere. I don't know. But you never know. I mean, I'm going to have an interview with a vampire. Ooh.
There you go.
And, I'll be putting it up there. It'll be an audio piece, and it'll be, you know, a written piece. So, and of course, yeah, as I'm going to listen to this again. Of course, I'll sit through all our interview, and if more questions come up, I'll definitely shoot you a line, or maybe I'll call. You know, we'll talk again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. You know,
no problem.
You're one of the coolest people I know.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. You have a good night, Vlad.
You the same. Take
yeah.
care.
Bye-bye.